A barefoot 6-year-old girl crashes through the diner door at 2 a.m., blood streaming from her frozen feet, her tiny fist grabbing a biker's leather vest so hard her knuckles crack. "Please, mister, please. My house is burning. My mama is trapped upstairs. She can't walk. Please, she's going to die." 98 bikers freeze. Coffee cups shatter on the floor. One grizzled man drops to his knees and his scarred hands find the child's face. His voice breaks. "Where, sweetheart? What happens next will haunt you forever. Before we begin, tell me where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this moves, you please subscribe and stay until the very end. This one will change you." The door hit the wall so hard the glass cracked. Every head in Dale's roadside diner turned at once. 98 members of the Iron Thunder Motorcycle Club gathered for their annual winter memorial ride fell silent in the span of a single heartbeat. The girl couldn't have been more than 6 years old, barefoot, pajamas torn at the knee, soot covering her face like war paint, blood trailing from her feet across the white linoleum floor. She was sobbing so hard her whole body convulsed with each breath. "Please," her voice cracked like breaking ice. "Please, somebody help me." Marcus Bear Holloway was the first to move. At 52 years old, the president of Iron Thunder had seen things that would break most men. 2 decades as a firefighter. 6 years, carrying the weight of his brother's death. A marriage that crumbled because he couldn't stop waking up screaming. But nothing had prepared him for the look in this child's eyes. He dropped to one knee, his bones protesting the cold that had settled into them years ago. His massive hands found her tiny shoulders, steadying her. "Hey, hey, hey." His voice was gravel, wrapped in something softer. "Look at me, sweetheart. Right here. What's your name?" "Rosie." She hiccuped violently. "Rosie Carter." "Okay, Rosie, I'm Bear. Can you tell me what happened?" "Our house." The words exploded out of her. "Our house is on fire. Mama's trapped upstairs and she can't walk and I couldn't carry her and she told me to run and find help and I ran and I ran and my feet hurt so bad but I didn't stop because Mama said don't stop and Rosie." Bear's grip tightened just enough to center her. "Rosie, breathe. I need you to breathe for me." She tried, failed, tried again. Behind Bear chairs scraped against the floor as 97 bikers rose to their feet. The sound was thunder rolling through the small diner. "Where's your house, honey?" Bear kept his voice steady, even as his heart slammed against his ribs. "Where's your mama?" "Miller Creek Road. The blue house with the big tree. You can see the fire from here. You can see it if you look. Please, mister. Please. Mama's going to die." Doc Rivera was already at the window. 48 years old, former Army trauma surgeon hands that had held dying soldiers together in Afghanistan. He pressed his face to the glass and his breath caught. "She's right." His voice was quiet, but it carried. "There's a glow about 3 miles out. It's Big Bear. It's real big." Bear's jaw tightened. 3 miles. In this weather, with ice under the snow and visibility near zero, that was a lifetime. "How long have you been running, Rosie?" "I don't know." Fresh tears carved tracks through the soot on her cheeks. "A long time. The snow was up to my knees. I fell down twice, but I got back up because Mama said, get help. She said, find someone. She said..." Her voice broke completely. "She said she loves me. She said it like she was saying goodbye." Something cracked inside Bear's chest, a sound only he could hear. The same sound he'd heard 6 years ago when his brother Mike's voice had come through the radio for the last time. "Bear, I'm trapped. The ceiling's coming down. Tell Mom I..." Static. Then nothing. Bear had spent 6 years trying to outrun that static. 6 years riding from state to state, chapter to chapter, trying to put enough miles between himself and that moment. Now a child was looking at him with eyes that held the same desperate hope Mike must have had in those final seconds. "Please, mister." Rosie's frozen fingers found his leather cut and gripped with everything she had. Please save my mama. Please don't let her die. Please. Bear stood. The decision made itself. Saddle up. His voice cut through the diner like a blade. Everyone, now. Mama Jean Thompson stepped forward. 61 years old, the only female founding member of Iron Thunder. She'd buried a son to a house fire 15 years ago. Her eyes were already wet. Bear, the fire department. Is 45 minutes out. I know. We're closer. The roads. I know. Their eyes met. Something passed between them that needed no words. Mama Jean had been there when Bear got the call about Mike. She'd been the one to stop him from walking into traffic 3 days later. Go, she said. I'll stay with the child. Call 911. Get ambulances rolling. No! Rosie lunged forward, grabbing Bear's leg. I have to come. I have to show you which house. Please, you won't find it without me. Please. Bear looked down at this tiny warrior, this 6-year-old who had run 3 miles through a frozen January night on bleeding feet to save her mother. Can you hold on tight? I can hold on forever. Then you're with me. Mama Jean, get blankets ready. When we come back, this girl's going to need warming up. When you come back, Mama Jean repeated, making it a promise. With her mother. Ghost Williams appeared at Bear's shoulder. 38 years old, ex-convict, 7 years in state prison for armed robbery. He'd found redemption through Iron Thunder, found purpose in Brotherhood. He hadn't spoken more than 50 words in the past month. Now, he spoke 2. I'm driving. Bear shook his head. I'm taking her on my bike. You lead the... Your hands are shaking. Ghost's voice was flat observational. Been shaking since she walked in. I'll drive. You hold her. Bear looked down at his hands. Ghost was right. They were trembling like leaves in a storm. 6 years and his body still remembered the fire. Fine, Ghost drives. Doc, you're with him. Bring everything you've got. Preacher, coordinate the others. I want bikes spreading out on every approach to Miller Creek Road. If the main route's blocked, we find another way. Preacher Davis nodded once. 55 years old, former pastor who'd lost his faith when his church burned down, taking 3 of his congregation with it. He'd been rebuilding that faith brick by brick ever since. We'll find a way, he said, God willing. God's got nothing to do with this. Bear lifted Rosie into his arms. This is on us. They hit the cold like a wall. The snow was coming down thick and fast, visibility maybe 30 feet. Bear's breath crystallized the moment it left his lungs. Rosie buried her face in his chest. It's so cold. I know, sweetheart. We're going to get you warm soon. But first, we're going to get your mama. Ghost was already on his bike engine, roaring to life. The sound was thunder and prayer combined. One by one, 97 more engines joined the chorus. The ground trembled. The air vibrated. The night itself seemed to shake. Bear climbed onto the back of Ghost's bike, Rosie secure between them. Hold on to me, Rosie. Don't let go. I won't let go. I promise. I never let go. Ghost kicked off. The bike surged forward into the white. Behind them, a river of headlights followed. 98 motorcycles cutting through the storm like an arrow aimed at fate. Doc pulled alongside them, his medical kit strapped to his back. He shouted over the engine noise. Bear, what are we looking at? House fire. Mother trapped on 2nd floor. She's paralyzed, can't walk. Doc's face went pale. Paralyzed? From an accident 2 years ago. She can't get herself out. Smoke inhalation. If she's been breathing that air for more than 10 minutes, then we better get there in 5. Bear's arms tightened around Rosie. Ghost faster. Ghost didn't respond with words. He just twisted the throttle. The glow grew brighter as they rode. Bear could smell it now, that particular stench of burning wood and melting plastic and something else. Something he'd never been able to name but would recognize anywhere. The smell of a home dying. Memories crashed through him like waves against rocks. Mike's voice on the radio. Bear, I'm on the 3rd floor. There's a family up here. 4 kids. I'm not leaving them. Bear's own voice cracking. Mike, the structure's compromised. Get out. That's an order. You're not my captain, big brother. You're just my brother, and these kids need me. Tell Mom. Static. The ceiling had come down 18 seconds later. Mike and all 4 children had died together. The investigation found the fire had been set deliberately. Insurance fraud. The building owner had needed the money. He got 20 years. Mike got a funeral with full honors and a mother who never smiled again. Bear got nightmares that never stopped and a bottle of whiskey that became his best friend. Now he was riding toward another fire, holding another child, making another promise he might not be able to keep. Mr. Bear, Rosie's voice was small against the wind. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you scared? Bear thought about lying. Thought about telling her everything would be fine, that grown-ups don't get scared, that heroes never doubt. Instead, he told her the truth. Yeah, Rosie, I'm scared. Me too. She pressed closer. But Mama says being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the hard thing anyway. Your mama sounds smart. She's the smartest person in the whole world. She was going to be a doctor before the accident. She was helping people get better. Then the truck hit our car, and Daddy died, and Mama's legs stopped working, and... Her voice hitched. And I try to help her, but I'm too small. I'm too small for everything. You ran 3 miles through a blizzard to save her life. Bear's voice was fierce. That's not small. That's the biggest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Really. Really. The house emerged from the white like a nightmare made real. Bear had seen a lot of fires in his 20 years. Structure fires, warehouse fires, apartment buildings that went up like matchboxes. He'd walked into infernos that would have sent most men running. This was bad. The entire first floor was fully engulfed. Flames crawled up the eastern wall, licking hungry at the second-floor windows. The roof hadn't caught yet. That meant time, but not much. A figure was visible in an upstairs window, silhouetted against the orange glow of smoke and fire. "Mama!" Rosie screamed. Bear was off the bike before it fully stopped. His boots hit snow and ice slid caught on pure adrenaline. He was running before he knew he'd started. "Elena!" He bellowed the name Rosie had given him during the ride. "Elena Carter!" The figure in the window moved. A hand pressed against the glass. Then the window shattered outward, and a woman's voice cut through the roar of the flames. "Rosie! Rosie! I'm here, Mama. I brought help. I brought so much help." Elena's face appeared in the broken window. Even from 50 feet away, Bear could see the terror in her eyes, the soot covering her skin. The way she was gripping the windowsill with white-knuckled hands, her body slumped in a way that screamed her legs wouldn't support her. "Oh God! Oh God! There's so many of you!" Her voice cracked on a sob. "Please, I can't get down. I tried to crawl to the stairs, but they're gone. The whole staircase is gone." Ghost appeared at Bear's shoulder. "Front door's a no-go. Back door might be clear." "I'll find a way in." Bear was already moving. "Get something we can use to catch her if we have to drop her from the window." "Bear." Ghost's hand caught his arm. "The structure's compromised. The floor could go any second." "I know. You could die in there." Bear looked at Ghost. Looked at this man who had spent 7 years in a cell paying for his mistakes, who had emerged determined to make every remaining day count. "I've been dying for 6 years, Ghost. Tonight I might actually get to live." He pulled free and ran toward the back of the house. Doc was already organizing the other bikers. "I need 20 men on blankets. Stretch them tight, we might need to catch her. Another 20 on perimeter, make sure no one else is in there. The rest of you get those bikes positioned. I need light. All the light you can give me." 97 bikers moved like a machine. Years of riding together, years of brotherhood had forged them into something more than a club. They were family, and family protected their own, even when their own was a stranger they'd met 5 minutes ago. Bear circled the house, arm raised against the heat that radiated from the walls. The back door was intact. Smoke poured from the edges, but the wood itself hadn't caught. He lowered his shoulder and hit it full force. The door exploded inward. Heat slammed into him like a physical blow. Smoke filled his lungs, instantly thick and choking and hungry. Bear dropped low, pulled his bandana up over his mouth. Pathetic protection, but better than nothing. He moved. The kitchen was gone. Flames danced across the ceiling, dripped down the walls like liquid fire. A child's drawing on the refrigerator, a stick figure family, I love you mama, written in crayon curled black at the edges. Bear pushed through. The living room was an inferno. The couch was a skeleton of springs and ash. A Christmas tree in the corner, still decorated Christmas had only been 2 weeks ago, was a tower of flame. Ornaments popped in the heat like tiny gunshots. The stairs, or what was left of them. The bottom half had collapsed entirely. A gap of 8 feet separated the ground floor from what remained of the upper staircase. 8 feet. In full gear with a running start, Bear might be able to make that jump. He wasn't in gear. He wasn't 25 anymore. And if he missed, he'd fall into a pit of fire and debris. "Elena!" he shouted up through the gap. "Can you hear me? I'm here, I'm right above you, I can see the gap, I can't jump, I know I'm coming to you, just hold on." Bear looked around frantically. There had to be another way. A ladder, a rope. Something. His eyes landed on the fallen banister. A solid piece of oak, maybe 10 feet long, charred but intact. It wasn't a ladder, but it might work as a bridge. He grabbed the banister muscles, screaming as he lifted it. The wood was hot enough to burn through his gloves, but he didn't let go. "I'm going to lay this across the gap," he shouted up. "It won't hold much weight, but it doesn't have to hold much weight. I just need to get up there. It's too dangerous. You'll fall. Lady, I've been falling for 6 years. This is the first time I've had somewhere to land." Bear positioned the banister across the gap. It was barely wide enough for 1 foot at a time. It creaked ominously under even that slight pressure. This was insane. This was suicide. This was exactly what Mike would have done. Bear started across. The wood groaned beneath him, shifted. He could feel it bowing under his weight, feel the heat from below rising up like hands trying to pull him down. 1 step, 2, 3. The banister cracked. Bear lunged forward, hands catching the edge of the upper floor just as the wood gave way beneath him. For 1 horrible second, he hung there, legs dangling over the inferno below. Then he pulled. Every muscle he had, every ounce of strength built from 20 years of dragging bodies from burning buildings, went into that pull. He hauled himself up and over, collapsing onto the 2nd floor. The smoke was thicker up here, a living thing that wrapped around him and squeezed. "Where are you?" His voice was ragged. "Elena, where?" "Here, I'm here." He crawled toward the sound. The heat was incredible even on the 2nd floor. The floor beneath him felt soft, unstable. They had minutes at best. He found her in the hallway, dragging herself toward him with arms that shook with exhaustion. Her legs trailed behind her, useless. Her face was streaked with tears and soot. But her eyes were fierce with a mother's determination. "My daughter," she gasped. "Is my daughter safe? She's outside. She's waiting for you." Elena's face crumpled. "She made it. Oh God, she made it. I told her to run and she made it." "She ran 3 miles through a blizzard to save you." Bear reached her, pulled her into his arms. "She's the bravest kid I've ever met. She's everything. She's all I have. When my husband died, when I lost my legs, she was the reason I kept breathing. If something had happened to her, nothing happened to her. Nothing's going to happen to you. We're getting out of here." "How?" Elena looked at the gap in the staircase. "I can't jump. I can barely crawl. I'll slow you down. You should go. Save yourself. Tell Rosie I love her. Tell her." "I'm not telling her anything except, here's your mama." Bear's voice was iron. "Now put your arms around my neck." "You can't carry me. I'm dead weight. You're a mother who kept her daughter alive long enough to save you both. You're not dead anything. Now hold on." Elena wrapped her arms around his neck. Her grip was weak. Smoke inhalation had sapped her strength, but it was enough. Bear rose. 230 pounds of woman plus his own weight. His knees screamed. His back howled. He didn't care. He moved toward the window. Outside he could see the bikers, dozens of them positioned below with blankets stretched between them. Doc was shouting orders. Ghost was climbing something, the old oak tree that Rosie had mentioned. Ghost made it to a branch that extended toward the window. He started moving along it, testing his weight. "There's a man climbing toward us," Elena whispered. "In a tree." "That's Ghost. He's going to help us get you down." Ghost. What kind of name is Ghost? The kind you earn when you spend 7 years in prison and come out looking for redemption. Ghost reached the end of the branch. It bent dangerously under his weight, but held. "Bear," his voice carried through the broken window. "I'm going to swing over. Can you get her to the window?" "Working on it." Bear moved as fast as he could with Elena in his arms. The floor groaned beneath every step. Plaster fell from the ceiling. Somewhere behind them, something collapsed with a roar. They were out of time. Ghost leaped from the branch, arms outstretched, and caught the windowsill. For one terrible moment, he hung there, feet dangling over the 20-foot drop. Then he pulled himself up, his face appearing in the window frame. "Hand her to me." "Ghost, you can't support her weight on that." "I spent 7 years doing pull-ups in a prison yard with nothing else to do. I can hold her. Now hand her to me." Bear maneuvered Elena to the window. She looked at Ghost, this stranger with the haunted eyes and the iron grip, and something passed between them. "If you drop me," she said, "my daughter will never forgive you." "Lady, I haven't forgiven myself for anything in 10 years. I'm not starting now. Hold on." Ghost took Elena's weight, supporting her against the window frame while Bear climbed out after her. The branch that Ghost had used was too thin for 2 people. Bear looked down at the ground 20 feet below at the bikers, with their blankets at dock shouting instructions. "We're going to have to drop her." "Drop me," Elena's voice rose. "From here, they'll catch you. See those blankets? They're stretched tight. You'll be fine." "I'll break my neck." "You'll be fine," Bear repeated. "I promise." It was the same promise he'd made to Rosie, the same promise he'd failed to keep for Mike. But this time would be different. It had to be. "Elena," he looked into her eyes. "Do you trust me? I don't even know you. Do you trust me?" She looked at him for a long moment. At this stranger covered in soot and burns, this man who had walked into an inferno for her who was holding her life in his hands. "Yes," she whispered. "God help me, yes." "Then close your eyes and hold on to Rosie in your mind. Picture her face, her smile. That's what you're falling toward." Elena closed her eyes. Ghost and Bear lowered her out the window, holding her wrists, extending her as far as they could. Below, 50 bikers tightened their grip on the blankets. "On 3, Doc shouted up. 1, 2, 3. They let go. Elena fell. She didn't scream. She kept her eyes closed. She held on to the image of her daughter's face like a lifeline, and 50 strangers caught her like she was their own. The blankets bowed with the impact. Hands reached in from all sides, steadying her, lowering her to the ground. "She's okay," Doc's voice rang out. "She's breathing. Minor burns, smoke inhalation, but she's okay. Mama." Rosie's scream cut through everything. The little girl broke free from Mama Jean's grip and ran to her mother. Elena gathered her into her arms, and the sound that came from both of them was grief and relief and love all tangled together. Above, Bear turned to Ghost. "Your turn. Go." "What about you?" "I'm right behind you." Ghost didn't argue. He couldn't. The floor beneath Bear was starting to sag, the fire eating through from below. Ghost jumped. He hit the blankets hard, rolled, came up already moving to make room for Bear. Bear looked down at the crowd below, at the mother and daughter wrapped around each other, at the 97 bikers who had followed him into hell on nothing but faith and brotherhood, at Ghost looking up at him with something new in those dead eyes, something that looked almost like hope. Bear jumped. For a moment he was weightless, suspended between fire and earth, between the past and the future. Then the blankets caught him, and hands were pulling him to his feet, and voices were shouting and laughing and crying all at once. The roof collapsed behind him. The entire second floor went down in a shower of sparks and flame. 10 seconds later, and they would have all died in there. Rosie slammed into Bear's legs so hard she almost knocked him over. "You did it. You saved her. You saved my mama." Bear looked down at this child, this incredible, impossible child who had run through the night to save her mother. "We all did, sweetheart." His voice cracked. "We all saved her together." Elena was being loaded onto a makeshift stretcher, a piece of plywood covered with blankets, the best they could manage, until the ambulance arrived. She reached out as Bear approached her hand, finding his. "Thank you." Her voice was raw from smoke and tears. "I don't know how to... I can't ever... Don't thank me yet." Bear squeezed her hand. "We've got a lot of work to do." "What do you mean?" But before Bear could answer, headlights cut through the snow. Not bikes this time. A sheriff's cruiser pulling up, fast lights flashing. Deputy Wayne Harmon stepped out with his hand on his gun. Bear's jaw tightened. Harmon had been harassing Iron Thunder for years. Traffic stops for no reason. Random searches that always seemed to target their members. Public comments about criminal bikers and dangerous gangs. Harmon had been at Mike's funeral. He'd shaken Bear's hand and called him a hero. A week later, he'd pulled Bear over for a broken taillight that wasn't broken, and told him to go back to whatever hole he crawled out of. Now Harmon was walking toward the scene with that swagger Bear knew too well. That swagger that said, "I'm the law here, and you're all just animals waiting to be put down." Harmon's eyes swept the scene. 98 bikers surrounding a burning house, a woman on a stretcher, a child covered in soot. His hand went to his weapon. Everyone freeze step away from the victims. Bear didn't move, didn't raise his hands, didn't play the game Harmon wanted him to play. "Deputy, we just pulled this woman and her daughter out of that fire. The fire department's still 30 minutes away. Maybe put the gun down and help us, or get out of the way so we can do your job for you." Harmon's face went red. "I said step away. I'll have every one of you arrested for what?" Mama Jean's voice cut in like a knife. "For saving a life, for being in the right place at the right time." "Go ahead, deputy. Arrest us. Every news camera in the state will be here by morning. Let them see you putting handcuffs on the people who did what you couldn't." Harmon's hand trembled on his weapon, and then Rosie broke away from her mother and ran to him. Her little body slammed into his legs just like it had slammed into Bear's. Her arms wrapped around him. Her tear-stained face looked up at the deputy with absolute conviction. "They saved my mama!" Her voice was fierce protective. "They ran into the fire. They caught her when she fell. They're heroes. They're all heroes. And if you hurt them, I'll never forgive you. Never, ever, ever." Harmon looked down at this child, this tiny warrior who had run 3 miles through a blizzard, who had grabbed the nearest biker and begged for help, who was now defending those same bikers with every ounce of her 6-year-old soul. Something shifted in his face. His hand dropped from his weapon. His voice cracked. "Is everyone okay?" Bear watched the change happen, watched years of prejudice crack like ice under spring sun. "Everyone's alive," Bear said, thanks to a little girl who refused to give up. Harmon was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his cruiser, grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I need additional ambulances to Miller Creek Road. I have multiple civilians suffering from smoke inhalation and cold exposure. And..." He paused. "And I need you to notify the chief. We've got a situation here that's going to require a different approach." He turned back to the group. "What can I do to help?" Bear felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Something that felt almost like hope. "Start by getting blankets from your trunk. These people are freezing." Harmon moved. And 98 bikers who had been ready for a fight found themselves in the middle of something else entirely. Something that felt like a beginning. The ambulances arrived 18 minutes later, 3 of them lights flashing sirens cutting through the snow. Elena was loaded into the first one. Rosie refused to leave her side, so they let the little girl climb in too. Before the doors closed, Elena reached out and grabbed Bear's hand one more time. "What's your real name?" she asked. "Not Bear, your real name." "Marcus. Marcus Holloway." "Marcus." She smiled through the oxygen mask. "I'm going to remember that name for the rest of my life. You just focus on getting better. We'll talk when you're out of the hospital. Will you visit? Will you bring..." She gestured weakly at the crowd of bikers. Will you bring them? Bear looked at his brothers and sisters. At Ghost, standing apart, staring at his hands like he'd never seen them before. At Doc, checking vitals on bikers who'd inhaled too much smoke. At Preacher, leading a quiet prayer circle that even the atheists had joined. At Mama Jean, organizing blankets and coffee that someone had driven to get from the diner. At Deputy Harmon, working alongside them like he'd never seen them as enemies. Yeah, Bear said. We'll be there. The ambulance doors closed. The sirens wailed. Bear watched until the lights disappeared into the snow. Ghost appeared at his shoulder. You okay? No. Bear shook his head. But I think I might be getting there. The fire trucks arrived 20 minutes after the ambulances. Too late to save the house, it was nothing but embers and ash now. But they secured the scene, made sure nothing spread to the neighboring properties. The fire chief, a man Bear vaguely recognized from his days on the department, approached with a look of pure disbelief on his face. Holloway, Marcus Holloway. Chief Patterson. I heard you left the life. Heard you couldn't take it anymore after Mike. Bear's jaw tightened. I didn't leave the life. I just changed how I lived it. Patterson looked at the crowd of bikers, at the burned-out house, at the tire tracks in the snow where 98 motorcycles had carried hope through the storm. What you did tonight, that was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Probably both. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then he extended his hand. Mike would be proud of you. You know that, right? Bear couldn't speak. Could only take the offered hand and hold it. Take care of yourself, Holloway, and take care of those people. Patterson nodded toward Elena's ambulance now, just a memory of lights in the distance. Something tells me they're going to need you. The bikers gathered as the fire trucks worked. 98 people standing in the snow, steam rising from their breath, exhaustion written on every face. Mama Jean spoke first. What now? Bear looked at the ruins of Elena Carter's home, at the pile of ash and ember that had once held a family's memories, at the child's swing set in the backyard, somehow untouched chains swaying in the wind like it was waiting for Rosie to come back. Now, he said, we rebuild. Rebuild with the house, everything. Bear turned to face his family. That woman lost everything tonight. Her home, her possessions, probably whatever savings she had. She's a widow. She's disabled. She's got a 6-year-old daughter who just ran through hell to save her. And tomorrow she's going to wake up in a hospital bed with nothing but a kid and a pile of ashes. What are you suggesting? Preacher asked. We build her a new house. We're a motorcycle club, not a construction company. No, but between us we've got electricians, plumbers, carpenters, painters. We've got Doc for medical care. We've got accountants and lawyers and businessmen. We've got everything she needs. Bear's voice rose. When we were nothing, when we were outcasts and criminals and rejects, we built something. We built a family. We built Iron Thunder. We can do it again. We can build this woman a life. The crowd was silent. Then Ghost spoke. I'm in. Everyone turned to look at him. Ghost who never spoke in meetings. Ghost who lived in the shadows of his own guilt. Ghost who had spent 10 years believing he was beyond redemption. I'm in, he repeated. Tonight I climbed a tree and caught a falling woman. Tonight I did something that mattered. First time in my life. He looked at Bear. Whatever you're building, I want to be part of it. One by one, voices joined his. I'm in. Doc. I'm in. Mama Jean. I'm in. Preacher. I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. 98 voices, one answer. Bear felt the weight of 6 years lift from his shoulders. Not completely, it would never lift completely, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to hope. Then let's get to work, he said. We've got a family to save. The snow kept falling. The fire kept smoldering. And somewhere in the night, a 6-year-old girl held her mother's hand in an ambulance and whispered a prayer of thanks for the strangers who had become angels. The road ahead would be long. The challenges would be immense. There would be moments of doubt and despair and danger that none of them could yet imagine. But for now, in this moment, 98 people stood together in the storm and made a choice. They chose hope. They chose family. They chose to ride into the fire, no matter the cost. And somewhere Mike Holloway smiled. The hospital smelled like bleach and broken promises. Bear had been sitting in the same plastic chair for 6 hours. His clothes still reeked of smoke. His hands were wrapped in bandages where the burns had blistered. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flames. But he couldn't leave, not until he knew she was okay. Ghost sat beside him silent, as always. Doc had gone to talk to the doctors using credentials he hadn't touched in years. Mama Jean was in the cafeteria buying coffee for the 8 other bikers who had refused to go home. The door to Elena's room opened. Doc emerged, his face unreadable. Bear was on his feet before he knew he'd moved. How is she? 2nd-degree burns on her arms and back. Significant smoke inhalation. Dehydration. Exhaustion. Doc paused. She's stable. But nothing. She's going to be fine, Bear. She's tough as hell. A small smile cracked Doc's weathered face. She asked about you. First thing out of her mouth when she woke up. Where's the man who carried me? Bear felt something loosen in his chest. And Rosie, sleeping in her mother's bed, hasn't let go of Elena's hand since they got here. The nurses tried to move her to a cot 3 times. She told them, and I'm quoting here, "I didn't run 3 miles to leave now." Ghost made a sound that might have been a laugh. Bear had never heard him laugh before. Can I see them? Elena's asking for you, but Bear... Doc caught his arm. She doesn't know about the house yet. She doesn't know there's nothing left. I'll tell her. Are you sure she's been through... She deserves the truth, and she deserves to know she's not alone. Bear pushed through the door. Elena was propped up in bed, oxygen tube in her nose, a V in her arm. Her face was pale beneath the soot stains they hadn't quite managed to wash away. But her eyes were clear and sharp, and fixed on him the moment he entered. Rosie was curled against her side, small body rising and falling with deep sleep. You came back, Elena whispered. I said I would. People say a lot of things. She winced as she shifted position. Usually they don't mean them. Bear pulled a chair close to the bed, close enough to see the fear she was trying to hide, close enough to see the strength underneath it. Your house is gone, he said. No preamble, no softening. She deserved better than lies wrapped in kindness. The fire took everything. I'm sorry. Elena's eyes closed. A single tear tracked down her cheek. I know. Her voice was barely audible. I knew when the roof started falling. I knew when I heard the walls coming down. Everything Marcus and I built, everything we saved for, our wedding photos, Rosie's baby pictures, she choked, his ashes. I kept his ashes on the mantle because I couldn't bear to scatter them yet. And now, her whole body shook with silent sobs. Bear didn't speak, didn't offer empty comfort. He just sat with her in the wreckage of her grief and let her feel it. When the sobs subsided, Elena opened her eyes. What am I going to do? The question was raw, desperate. I have nothing. No home, no money, no I can't work. Not with my legs. The disability payments barely covered the mortgage. And now there's no mortgage because there's no house, and I don't know where we're going to. You're going to let us help. Elena stared at him. What? My club. Iron Thunder. 98 people who rode through a blizzard because a little girl asked us to. Bear leaned forward. We want to rebuild your house. That's insane. You don't even know me. I know your daughter ran 3 miles on bloody feet to save your life. I know you told her to leave you behind and she refused. I know you were dragging yourself across a burning floor with arms that could barely hold you up because you weren't ready to give up. Bear's voice was fierce. That's enough. That's more than enough. But a whole house. We've got electricians, plumbers, carpenters. We've got architects and engineers and guys who've been building things their whole lives. We've got money from the club fund, and I guarantee you'll have more coming in once word gets out. He paused. All you have to do is say yes. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Her hand found Rosie's sleeping form fingers brushing through the girl's tangled hair. Why? She finally asked. Why would you do this for a stranger? Bear thought about Mike, about the 4 children his brother had died trying to save, about the years of guilt and whiskey and running from himself. Because someone should have done it for me once, he said, and no one did. And I've spent 6 years wishing they had. Elena studied his face. Whatever she saw there made her nod slowly. Okay. I'll let you help. Fresh tears spilled over. But I need you to understand something. My husband died 2 years ago. A drunk driver. Marcus, he was driving Rosie to school, and a man ran a red light, and... Her voice cracked. He was killed instantly. I was paralyzed. Rosie walked away without a scratch. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it a curse, because she had to watch her daddy die while she didn't have a single bruise. Bear felt Ghost's words echoing in his head. I've been dead inside for 10 years. Tonight I get to live for someone else. She saved you tonight, Bear said. Whatever happened 2 years ago, whatever guilt she's been carrying tonight, she saved you. That matters. She's 6 years old. She shouldn't have had to save anyone. No, she shouldn't have. But she did. And that makes her the bravest person I've ever met. Bear stood. Get some rest, Elena. We've got work to do. He was almost to the door when her voice stopped him. Bear. Yeah. Thank you. For not lying to me. For not pretending everything's okay when it isn't. She held his gaze. My husband used to say that the people who tell you hard truths are the ones who actually care. The ones who tell you pretty lies are just trying to make themselves feel better. Your husband sounds like he was a smart man. He was. He really was. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. He would have liked you. Bear nodded once and left before she could see the tears in his own eyes. The sun was rising by the time they left the hospital. Weak winter light filtering through gray clouds, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. Bear's phone had been buzzing for hours. He finally pulled it out and stared at the screen. 47 missed calls, 83 text messages, and the number kept climbing. Word's out, Mama Jean said, looking at her own phone. The story hit local news at 4 a.m. By 6, it was regional. Bear. She looked up. We're going viral. What? Someone at the diner filmed the whole thing, us leaving bikes roaring Rosie on the back of Ghost's motorcycle. It's everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. People are sharing it millions of times. Bear felt a headache building behind his eyes. That's the last thing we need. Media attention means scrutiny. Scrutiny means donations. Mama Jean thrust her phone at him. Look at this. A GoFundMe someone started 3 hours ago for Elena and Rosie. Bear, it's already at $40,000. He grabbed the phone, stared at the number, watched it tick up even as he watched. 40,200, 40,500. That's just the beginning. Mama Jean was grinning. I've got calls coming in from news stations, talk shows, podcasts. Everyone wants the story. Everyone wants to interview the bikers who saved the widow and her daughter. Ghost materialized at Bear's shoulder. Is that a problem? It's complicated. Bear ran a hand over his face. Half our members have records, some of them serious. If the media starts digging, then let them dig. Ghost's voice was flat, certain. I spent 7 years in prison for armed robbery. I don't hide from it. I own it. And if someone wants to write a story about how an ex-con climbed a burning tree to save a paralyzed woman, let them write it. Maybe it'll help someone. Bear looked at this man he'd ridden with for 3 years. This silent, haunted man who never talked about his past and never smiled at the present. Something had changed last night, in all of them. Okay, Bear said. We do the interviews, but we control the narrative. This isn't about us being heroes. This is about a community coming together. This is about what people can do when they stop seeing each other as enemies. Speaking of enemies, Mama Jean nodded toward the hospital entrance. Deputy Harmon was walking toward them. Bear tensed. But Harmon's body language was different today, shoulders down instead of back, eyes uncertain instead of aggressive. He looked like a man who'd spent the night wrestling with himself. Holloway. Harmon stopped a few feet away. I need to talk to you. So, talk. I spent 20 years thinking I knew what you people were. 20 years of assumptions and prejudice, and he stopped. Started again. That little girl, Rosie. She looked at me last night like I was the bad guy, and I realized she was right. You all ran into a fire. I showed up with my hand on my gun. What does that make me? It makes you human. Bear's voice was surprisingly gentle. We all carry prejudice, Deputy. The question is, what we do when we realize it. I want to help. Help what? Rebuild the house. Whatever you're planning, I want to be part of it. Harmon's jaw tightened. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've been an ass to your club for years, but that woman, her daughter, they deserve everything, and I want to help give it to them. Bear studied the deputy for a long moment, this man who had made their lives difficult, who had used his badge as a weapon against them, who had stood at Mike's funeral and called Bear a hero, then spent the next 6 years treating him like a criminal. You know it won't be easy, Bear said, working alongside people you've spent years looking down on. I know. You know some of our members won't trust you, might never trust you. I know that too. And you still want in. Harmon nodded. My father was a firefighter, spent 30 years running into burning buildings. He used to say the only thing that matters is what you do when it counts. He paused. Last night when it counted, you ran in and I reached for my gun. I want to be the man who runs in. I want to be my father's son. Bear extended his hand. Harmon took it. Welcome to the team, Deputy. The first week was chaos. The burned lot had to be cleared before any building could begin. Bear organized shifts of volunteers working in 4-hour rotations to remove debris. The work was backbreaking, heartbreaking. Every charred piece of Elena's life that they pulled from the rubble was a reminder of what had been lost. Rosie's teddy bear half melted. Elena's wedding china shattered. A family photo album pages fused together by heat. But there were survivors too. A cast iron skillet that had belonged to Elena's grandmother. A metal box filled with important documents, birth certificates, social security cards that had been in a fireproof safe. And buried in the ash of the master bedroom, Marcus's wedding ring. Bear brought it to Elena himself. She was still in the hospital, scheduled for discharge in 2 more days. When she saw the ring, she didn't cry. She just held it against her heart and closed her eyes. He never took it off, she whispered. Not once in 8 years of marriage, not even when... She couldn't finish. We found it near where the nightstand would have been. He must have kept it close even after I stopped being able to wear mine. I know. She opened her eyes. My hands swelled from the chair, the pressure. I had to stop wearing my ring 3 months after the accident. It broke my heart. But Marcus said it didn't matter. He said he'd wear his for both of us. She slipped the ring onto a chain around her neck. Now he can wear it forever. Word spread faster than Bear had anticipated. By the end of the first week, Iron Thunder's 98 members had been joined by 30 more from chapters across Tennessee. Donations poured in from across the country. The GoFundMe reached $200,000. And the media wouldn't stop calling. Bear gave exactly 3 interviews. 1 to the local paper, 1 to a Nashville news station, and 1 to a podcast about motorcycle culture that had been following Iron Thunder for years. He said the same thing every time. We didn't do anything special. We just did what anyone should do. A child needed help. We helped. A family needed a home. We're building one. That's not heroism. That's community. That's what humans are supposed to do for each other. The clip went viral. 3 million views in 2 days. Elena watched it from her hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. He really believes that, she said to Mama Jean, who had become her near-constant companion. He really doesn't think he's a hero. Bear hasn't thought of himself as anything good in 6 years. Mama Jean replied, not since his brother died. What happened? Mama Jean hesitated. This wasn't her story to tell, but Elena deserved to understand the man who was rebuilding her life, Mike Holloway was a firefighter. Same department as Bear. 6 years ago, there was a warehouse fire. 4 kids trapped on the 3rd floor. Mike went up to get them. Bear ordered him out. The structure was failing, but Mike wouldn't leave without those children. Oh, God. The ceiling came down. Mike and all 4 kids died. Mama Jean's voice was heavy. It was ruled an arson, insurance fraud. The building owner got 20 years. Bear got nightmares and a bottle of whiskey that nearly killed him. And now he's rebuilding a house that burned down. For a woman with a child. Redemption comes in strange packages. Mama Jean smiled sadly. He's not trying to make up for what happened to Mike. That's impossible. But maybe, just maybe, he's learning that he's allowed to keep living even when his brother can't. Elena looked at the ring hanging against her chest. I understand that feeling. After Marcus died, I didn't want to live. Not really. I went through the motions for Rosie, but inside I was empty. And then the fire happened, and I realized... She stopped. Realized what? That I want to live. Actually live. Not just survive. I want to see Rosie grow up. I want to feel the sun on my face and laugh at stupid jokes and maybe someday feel something other than grief. She wiped her eyes. Bear gave me that. All of you gave me that. Mama Jean took her hand. Then let's make sure you get to have it. The foundation was poured on day 10. Bear stood with Doc and Ghost watching the concrete settle. Behind them, 40 bikers took a break from labor drinking coffee and eating sandwiches provided by a local restaurant that had refused to accept payment. It's starting to look real, Doc said. It was always real. Bear's voice was quiet. Now it's just starting to look like something people can believe in. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Heard about what you're doing. I want to help. Can we talk? He showed it to Ghost. You recognize this number? Ghost shook his head. Could be another donor. Could be press. Could be trouble. Only one way to find out. Bear dialed. The voice that answered was female, hesitant. Is this Marcus Holloway? Who's asking? My name is... A pause. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a reporter with the New York Times. But I'm not calling about a story. Then what are you calling about? I'm calling because 6 years ago my son was one of the children who died in that warehouse fire. And I need to meet the brother of the man who died trying to save him. Bear's heart stopped. I'll text you the address, he said. Come tomorrow. Come alone. He hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. Bear, Doc's voice was concerned. What is it? The past. Coming back around. Bear pocketed the phone. Ghost. I need you to handle things tomorrow morning. There's something I have to do. He didn't explain further. Didn't know how to explain that after 6 years of running, the past had finally tracked him down. Tomorrow he would face it. Tonight, he had a house to build. The frame went up in 3 days. Skeleton of wood and determination rising from the ashes. Elena came home from the hospital on day 12. Home being a relative term, Mama Jean had organized temporary housing in a motel room that the owner had donated for free. But Elena insisted on visiting the building site. Bear pushed her wheelchair through the mud and snow to where 63 bikers and 17 community volunteers were working in shifts around the clock. Elena stared at the structure taking shape before her. I don't understand, she whispered. Why do they care? They don't know me. They don't know Rosie. Why are they doing this? Because you needed help. Bear knelt beside her chair, bringing himself to eye level. Because your daughter ran through the night and grabbed the first person she saw and begged. Because sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. But I can't pay them back. I can't. I don't have anything to give. You already gave it. Bear pointed to Rosie, who was currently helping Ghost measure boards. The little girl had adopted the silent biker as her personal project, following him everywhere, chattering constantly, slowly drawing him out of his shell. Look at her. Look at Ghost. 2 weeks ago, that man hadn't smiled in years. Now he's teaching your daughter how to use a level. Elena watched her daughter correct Ghost's technique with the authority of a 6-year-old who knew everything. "He needs her," she said softly. "We all do. That's the thing about community, Elena. It's not about debt. It's not about transactions. It's about being there for each other because that's what makes us human." A truck pulled up behind them. Deputy Harmon jumped out carrying bags from the hardware store. "Got the fixtures you wanted?" he called to Preacher. "Had to drive to 3 different stores, but they're all here." Preacher clapped him on the shoulder. "Good man. Stack them over there, we'll install tomorrow." Bear watched the deputy jog over to the pile of materials, watched him interact with bikers who had every reason to distrust him, watched bridges being built out of 2x4s and second chances. "The deputy's here again," Elena observed. "3rd time this week. He's trying to make up for lost time." "Can he make up for it, I mean?" Bear thought about the question, really thought about it. "I don't know if anyone can truly make up for the past. But we can change the future. We can choose to be different. We can earn trust one day at a time until the person we were becomes just a memory of who we used to be." Elena nodded slowly. "I like that. I like the idea that we're not trapped by who we were. We're not. That's the whole point." Bear stood. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting I've been dreading for 6 years." Sarah Mitchell arrived at the diner at exactly 10 a.m. She was smaller than Bear had expected. Mid-40s, graying hair, eyes that held a grief he recognized because he saw it in his own mirror every day. She sat across from him in a booth by the window. Neither of them ordered. "Thank you for meeting me." Her voice was steady, controlled, professional. "You said you wanted to talk. So talk." Sarah folded her hands on the table. "My son was Nathan Mitchell. He was 7 years old. He was staying overnight at a friend's apartment in that warehouse when the fire started." "I know who Nathan was." Bear's voice was rough. "Mike talked about the kids, after. The ones he was trying to save. He wanted me to know their names. Nathan, Emily, Thomas, and Marcus. 4 kids. 4 reasons my brother ran up those stairs." Sarah's composure cracked, just for a moment. "I spent years hating your brother. Did you know that I blamed him for Nathan's death? If he'd gotten there faster, if he'd been smarter, if he'd done something different. If he'd done something different, he might have lived. But those kids still would have died. The ceiling was coming down regardless. Mike knew that. He went anyway." "I know that now." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I read the investigation reports, studied them, obsessed over them. And eventually, I understood your brother gave those children the only chance they had. It wasn't enough, but he gave everything he had." "Then why are you here?" Sarah pulled out her phone, showed him a video, the viral clip of 98 motorcycles riding into the storm. "I saw this, and I realized I'd been telling myself a story about who you people were. Bikers, criminals, dangerous. That's what I told myself. That's what made it easier to hate." She put the phone away. "But you're not that, are you? We're a lot of things. Some of us have records. Some of us have made mistakes we'll never stop paying for. But we're also the people who show up when everyone else looks away." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I want to help build the house." "What? I'm not a builder. I don't know anything about construction, but I can write. I can tell stories." She leaned forward. "Let me tell this one. The real story. Not the viral clips or the sensational headlines. The real story of who you are and why you do what you do." "Why would you want to do that?" "Because Nathan believed in heroes. He loved firemen, policemen, anyone who helped people. He would have loved your brother, and he would have loved what you're doing now." Her voice broke. "Let me honor my son by telling this story. Let me make something good come out of all this grief." Bear studied her face, saw the same desperate need for redemption that he felt in his own chest. "You understand, this isn't about heroes," he said. "This is about people. Flawed, broken, trying their best people." "I know. That's the story I want to tell." Bear extended his hand. "Then welcome to the family." Day 20. The walls were going up. Bear stood back and watched his brothers and sisters work. Watched strangers who had become family. Watched a deputy nail siding alongside an ex-convict. Watched a grieving mother photograph a rising house. watched a 6-year-old girl bring water bottles to anyone who looked thirsty. His phone rang. Unknown number. Again. Holloway. Is this Marcus Holloway, president of Iron Thunder Motorcycle Club? The voice was official, clipped. Who's asking? This is Lieutenant Governor Patricia Reeves. I'm calling about your building project. Bear's stomach dropped. Politicians meant complications. Permits, regulations, someone wanting to shut them down or take credit. What about it? I want to visit. I want to see what you're building, and I want to discuss how the state can support your efforts. We don't need government support. We're doing fine on our own. I'm sure you are, but what you're doing, it matters. And I think more people need to see it. A pause. I'm not looking to take over or interfere. I just want to help, if you'll let me. Bear thought about it. Thought about the message it would send a lieutenant governor supporting a motorcycle club's charity project. Come tomorrow. Bring work clothes. We don't need observers. We need hands. Silence on the line. Then a surprised laugh. I'll be there at 7 a.m. She was. And she worked for 8 hours straight, hammering and hauling and sweating alongside bikers and ex-cons and everyone in between. By the end of the day, she was covered in sawdust and smiling like she hadn't smiled in years. This is real, she said to Bear as the sun set. This is what community is supposed to look like. It's what it can look like, when people stop fighting each other and start building together. I'm going to remember that. She shook his hand. And I'm going to make sure the state remembers it too. Rosie appeared at Bear's elbow. Mr. Bear, Mama wants to see you. She says it's important. Bear found Elena in the motel room sitting by the window, staring at her phone. What's wrong? I got a call today from my brother-in-law, Marcus's brother. Her voice was hollow. He heard about the fire, about the rebuilding. He wants to come. That's good, isn't it, family support? You don't understand. Elena looked up, eyes filled with an old pain. David blamed me for the accident, for Marcus's death. He said I should have been driving. He said if I hadn't been so tired, if I hadn't made Marcus take Rosie to school that day. She stopped. He hasn't spoken to me in 2 years, and now he wants to come. Bear sat down across from her. What do you want? I don't know. Part of me wants to tell him to stay away, to protect myself and Rosie from more pain. But another part, she touched the ring around her neck. Another part wants Marcus's brother back, wants Rosie to have family beyond just me. Then give him a chance, but set boundaries. If he comes to help, not to judge, not to blame. If he can't do that, he leaves. And if he hurts Rosie again, if he says something, then he'll answer to 98 bikers who love that little girl like she's their own. Bear's voice was iron. We protect our own Elena, and you're our own now, both of you. Elena reached out and took his hand. How did this happen? She whispered. 3 weeks ago I was alone. I had no one. And now you have a family. A weird, loud, leather-wearing family that rides motorcycles and argues about football and would burn the world down to keep you safe. A knock at the door interrupted them. Bear opened it to find Ghost standing there, face unreadable. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that wears a badge and isn't harming. Ghost's jaw tightened. Fire marshal just showed up, says he's shutting down the build site. Something about permits and inspections and liability. Bear felt the familiar burn of anger in his chest. They were so close, so goddamn close. Where is he? On site, making threats. The guys are about 5 seconds from doing something stupid. Bear looked back at Elena, then at Ghost. Let's go have a conversation about community cooperation. He walked out into the cold, ready to fight for a family that 3 weeks ago hadn't even existed. But that was before a little girl grabbed his jacket and asked for help. That was before everything changed. The fire marshal was a small man with a big clipboard and an even bigger sense of self-importance. Bear found him standing in the middle of the build site, surrounded by 60 angry bikers who were barely holding themselves back. The man's name tag read, Inspector Raymond Voss, and his face wore the smug expression of someone who knew he held power over others. Everyone needs to stop working immediately, Voss announced. This site is in violation of multiple building codes and permit requirements. Bear pushed through the crowd. I'm Marcus Holloway. I'm in charge here. What's the problem? Voss looked him up and down with barely concealed disdain. The problem is you're building a house without proper permits, without licensed contractors on record, without approved architectural plans. I could list violations for the next hour. We have permits. Filed them 2 weeks ago. Filed yes. Approved no. Voss made a note on his clipboard. Until they're approved, all construction must cease. Preacher stepped forward. We've been building for 3 weeks. Why are you just showing up now? I show up when I show up. That's not your concern. Voss pulled out a roll of yellow tape. Now I'm going to need everyone to clear the site while I conduct a full inspection. Bear felt the anger rising in his chest. This wasn't about permits. This wasn't about codes. He'd seen this before, small men using small power to make themselves feel big. And if we don't clear the site, then I call the sheriff and have you all arrested for trespassing and obstruction. Voss smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Your choice. Ghost materialized at Bear's shoulder. Say the word. No. Bear held up a hand. We do this right. Everyone take a break. Let the inspector do his job. The crowd grumbled but complied. 60 bikers and a dozen volunteers moved away from the structure, leaving Voss alone with his clipboard and his authority. Bear pulled out his phone and dialed. Who are you calling? Ghost asked. Someone who owes me a favor. 20 minutes later, a familiar truck pulled up to the site. Deputy Harmon jumped out still in uniform, face tight with concern. Got your message. What's happening? Bear nodded toward Voss, who was photographing every corner of the structure with exaggerated thoroughness. Fire marshal showed up, says he's shutting us down. Harmon's eyes narrowed. Voss. Raymond Voss. You know him. Everyone knows him. He's been fire marshal for 15 years. Man's got a reputation. Harmon's voice dropped. He's shut down 3 charity builds in the past decade. Always finds some violation. Always demands some fee to make it go away. You're saying he's corrupt. I'm saying he's never been caught, but the pattern's there if you look. Harmon's jaw tightened. Let me talk to him. Bear watched as Harmon approached the fire marshal. Watched the body language shift, Voss's smugness faltering slightly at the sight of a uniformed officer. They spoke for several minutes. Bear couldn't hear the words, but he could read the conversation. Harmon firm-controlled. Voss defensive, then aggressive, then something else. Then something that looked like fear. Harmon returned face grim. He's not backing down. Says he'll be filing a formal stop work order first thing tomorrow morning. We'll have 72 hours to clear the site completely. Can he do that? Legally. Maybe. There are some legitimate permit issues. Things that should have been caught earlier. Things that fell through the cracks. Harmon ran a hand through his hair. But I don't think this is about permits. Then what's it about? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. The news spread through the group like wildfire. 3 weeks of work, hundreds of hours of labor, thousands of dollars in materials, all potentially wasted because of one man with a clipboard. Elena arrived in her wheelchair, pushed by Mama Jean. Her face was pale. Is it true they're shutting us down? Bear knelt beside her. They're trying. But we're not giving up. We're going to fight this. How I don't have money for lawyers. I don't have... You have us! Bear's voice was fierce. You have 98 people who aren't going to let some bureaucrat destroy what we've built. We'll find a way, Elena. I promise. You keep making promises. Her voice cracked. What if you can't keep them all? Then I'll die trying. Rosie appeared from somewhere, worming her way between the adults to reach her mother. What's wrong, Mama? Why is everyone sad? Elena pulled her daughter close. There's a problem with the house, baby. Some people are trying to stop us from building it. Why? I don't know, sweetheart. Rosie's face scrunched up with 6-year-old indignation. That's stupid. Don't they know we need a house? Don't they know ours burned down? I'm sure they know, baby. Then they're mean. Rosie pulled away from her mother and marched directly toward where Voss was packing up his inspection equipment. Hey, mister! Bear moved to intercept her, but Ghost was faster. He scooped Rosie up before she could reach the fire marshal. Let me go! Rosie squirmed. I want to talk to him. I want to tell him he's being mean. I know you do, little warrior. Ghost's voice was gentler than Bear had ever heard it. But sometimes the bad guys don't listen to words. Sometimes you have to fight them differently. How? Ghost looked at Bear. Something passed between them. By being smarter than they are. That night, Bear called an emergency meeting at the diner. Every member of Iron Thunder who could make it was there. 91 bikers crowded into a space meant for 50. They spilled out the door, lined the walls, sat on each other's laps. Bear stood at the front, flanked by Doc and Ghost. You all know why we're here. Fire Marshal's trying to shut us down. He's got legitimate leverage. Some of our permits got delayed, some of our inspections got missed. But we all know this isn't about paperwork. Then what's it about? Someone called from the back. Money. Power. Someone doesn't want this build to succeed. Bear paused. I don't know who yet, but I know how we fight back. How? Mama Jean asked. We go legal. Completely, totally legal. We file every permit, pass every inspection, dot every I, and cross every T. We make it impossible for anyone to shut us down on technicalities. That'll take weeks, Preacher said. Maybe months. Elena and Rosie can't wait that long. They won't have to. Bear pulled out his phone. Lieutenant Governor Reeves called me this afternoon. She's putting pressure on the State Building Authority to expedite our permits. Should have approval within 48 hours. A murmur ran through the crowd. But that's not enough, Bear continued. We need to know why Voss is really doing this. Who's pulling his strings? Harmon's looking into it, but he can only do so much officially. I need volunteers to do some unofficial digging. Ghost raised his hand. I'll do it. Ghost, you're on parole. If you get caught, I won't get caught. His voice was flat, certain. I spent 7 years learning how to find information people don't want found. Put me to work. Bear hesitated. This could go wrong in 100 different ways, but they were out of options. Okay, but you don't do anything illegal. You don't touch anything, don't take anything, don't threaten anyone. You just watch and listen. Understood. Understood. The meeting broke up around midnight. Bear stayed behind nursing a coffee that had gone cold hours ago. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making enemies. Back off the build or suffer the consequences. Bear stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed a reply. No. He hit send and finished his coffee. Ghost came back 3 days later with answers nobody wanted to hear. Voss is on someone's payroll, he reported, sitting across from Bear in the empty diner. I tracked his finances. Man makes $42,000 a year as fire marshal. But his house is worth $300,000. His wife drives a Mercedes and his kids go to private school. How did you get his financial information? I watched, I listened. His wife talks loud on the phone. Ghost shrugged. People don't pay attention to what they say in parking lots. Who's paying him? Company called Midwest Regional Development. They've been buying up property in this area for the past 2 years. Farmland mostly, a few residential lots. Ghost paused, including the lot right next to Elena's property. Bear felt something cold settle in his stomach. They want her land. They want the whole area. Some kind of commercial development deal. Shopping center, I think. Elena's lot is right in the middle of their acquisition zone. So they burn her out, buy the land cheap. And anyone who tries to help her rebuild gets shut down by a friendly fire marshal. Ghost's voice was bitter. Classic playbook. Can you prove it? Not yet, but I know someone who might be able to help. Ghost hesitated. My sister works for the county recorder's office. She has access to property records, business filings, things that would take anyone else months to find. Your sister? We haven't spoken in 10 years, not since I went to prison. Ghost's jaw tightened. She was the one who testified against me. She was right to do it. But I don't know if she'll talk to me. Will you try? Ghost was quiet for a long moment. For Rosie? Yeah. I'll try. He left before Bear could say anything else. Sarah Mitchell arrived at the build site the next morning with a camera crew. Bear intercepted her before she could get started. What's this? New York Times sent a video team. They want to do a documentary piece. She must have seen something in his face because she quickly added, I cleared it with my editor. This isn't an ambush. This is good news, Bear. National exposure. The kind of attention that makes corrupt officials very nervous. We've got enough attention. Do you? Because from what I hear, Raymond Voss is filing his stop work order today. You've got 48 hours before they tear all this down. Sarah stepped closer. Let me help. Let me put a spotlight on this so bright that Voss and whoever's behind him won't be able to hide. Bear looked at the camera crew, at Sarah's determined face, at the house rising behind them, almost finished, almost a home. Fine, but you clear everything with me before it airs. No surprises. Deal. The interviews took all day. Sarah talked to everyone, bikers, volunteers, Elena and Rosie, even Deputy Harmon. She captured the community that had formed around this project, the bonds that had been built alongside the house. Ghost returned that evening, his face unreadable. My sister will help. She agreed, after I apologized, for everything. Ghost's voice caught. She cried, I cried. First time I've cried in 10 years. He cleared his throat. She's pulling records tonight. Says she'll have something for us by morning. Ghost. Bear put a hand on his shoulder. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when Elena's living in her house. The package arrived at 6 a.m. Ghost's sister had included everything. Property records showing Midwest Regional Development's systematic acquisition of land in the area. Business filings revealing the company's true ownership, a shell corporation that traced back to a real estate conglomerate based in Nashville. Financial records suggesting irregular payments to several county officials, including Raymond Voss. And one more thing. A memo dated 3 months before Elena's fire discussing strategic property acquisition and mentioning insurance complications that might resolve themselves naturally. Bear's hands shook as he read it. They didn't just buy the fire marshal, he said. They started the fire. You don't know that. Doc's voice was careful. That memo is suggestive, but it's not proof. It's enough to get an investigation started. Bear pulled out his phone. Harmon needs to see this. Now. Deputy Harmon arrived within the hour. He read through the documents with growing horror on his face. This is enough for a warrant. Multiple warrants. We could have Voss in custody by tonight. Do it. Bear, you need to understand if we move on this, it's going to get ugly. These people have money power lawyers. They'll fight back. Let them. Bear's voice was iron. A woman lost her home maybe because of them. 4 kids could have died because of my brother 6 years ago. And now I find out corporations are burning houses for profit. He shook his head. I'm done letting people with money hurt people without it. Do your job, deputy. Arrest these bastards. Harmon made the calls. 2 hours later, Raymond Voss was in handcuffs. The news hit that afternoon. Local stations, first, then regional, then national. By evening, the story of the corrupt fire marshal and the suspected arson was everywhere. So was the story of the bikers who had uncovered it. Elena watched the coverage from the motel room, Rosie asleep in her lap. They really did it, she whispered. They actually found out who... Her voice broke. She couldn't finish. Bear sat beside her. The investigation is just starting. Could take months to build a case. But Voss is talking, trying to cut a deal. If he gives up the people above him, will they go to prison? The people who burned my house? I don't know, but they'll face justice, one way or another. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Bear's hand. My husband used to talk about karma. He believed that the universe balanced itself out, that good things came to good people eventually. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I stopped believing that after he died. Stopped believing in anything. And now I think maybe karma needs help. Maybe the universe doesn't balance itself. Maybe people have to balance it. People like you, people like Ghost and Doc and all those bikers who've given everything to rebuild my home. We're not heroes, Elena. No, you're better than heroes. You're real. She squeezed his hand. You're the realest thing that's happened to me in 2 years. Bear didn't know what to say to that, so he just sat with her in the silence, holding her hand, watching her daughter sleep. The stop work order was rescinded the next morning. Lieutenant Governor Reeves called personally to deliver the news. All permits approved, all inspections expedited. The state was even providing a grant to help cover construction costs. You've created something special here, Holloway, she said. I don't know if you realize how special. I'm starting to. The documentary is going to air next week, Sarah Mitchell's piece. I've seen a preview. Reeves paused. It's going to change things for your club, for your community, for Elena and Rosie. Are you ready for that? Bear looked out at the build site where crews were already back at work. Looked at Ghost carrying lumber alongside Preacher. At Mama Jean organizing volunteers with military precision. At Rosie supervising everyone with the authority of a tiny general. Yeah, he said. I think we are. But even as he said it, a truck pulled up to the site. A man stepped out mid-40s, expensive coat face that looked like he'd never smiled in his life. He walked straight toward Elena's wheelchair. I'm looking for Elena Carter. Elena's face went white. David, the man Marcus's brother, stared at her with eyes full of something Bear couldn't read. I got a call yesterday from a reporter. She told me what you've been through, what these people have done for you. His voice cracked. Elena, don't. Elena's voice was sharp. Don't you dare stand there and pretend you care. 2 years, David. 2 years of silence. 2 years of blaming me for your brother's death. And now you show up because it's on the news. I know how it looks. But please, just let me. Let you. What, apologize? Make yourself feel better. Elena's whole body was shaking. Do you have any idea what the last 2 years have been like, raising Rosie alone in that chair with no help from anyone? And now I find out that someone probably burned my house on purpose and you want to, pretend we're family again. David fell to his knees in front of her wheelchair, right there in the mud, ruining his expensive coat, tears streaming down his face. I was wrong. His voice broke completely. I was so wrong, Elena. I blamed you because I couldn't blame Marcus. I couldn't be angry at my dead brother, so I put all of it on you, and I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Elena stared at him, this man who had abandoned her, who had told her at Marcus's funeral that she should have been the one who died, who had refused to return her calls, her letters, her desperate pleas for help. Mama! Rosie appeared at her side. Why is Uncle David crying? David looked at his niece, this child he hadn't seen in 2 years, who had grown so much, who looked so much like Marcus. It hurt. Hey, Rosebud. His voice was barely a whisper. You remember me. You're Daddy's brother. You came to my birthday once. You brought me a purple dinosaur. Mr. Rex. You remember Mr. Rex. He burned in the fire. Rosie's voice was matter of fact. Everything burned in the fire, but Mr. Bear and his friends are building us a new house. Want to see? She held out her hand. David looked at Elena, asking permission, begging for it. And Elena, who had every right to hate him, every right to send him away, nodded once. Go on, Rosie. Show your uncle what we're building. Rosie took David's hand and led him toward the construction site, chattering about 2x4s and drywall and how Ghost was teaching her to measure things. Bear sat down next to Elena. You okay? No. She wiped her eyes. But I will be. You didn't have to let him stay. I know. Elena watched her daughter show David around the site, watched her brother-in-law nod at everything Rosie said, crying silently the whole time. But Rosie needs family. Real family, not just a motorcycle club who adopted us. We're real family. I know you are, but you're not her blood. You're not Marcus's blood. Elena touched the ring around her neck. David is all that's left of my husband. All that's left of Rosie's father. If there's any chance at all that he can be part of our lives again, I have to take it. Even after what he did. Elena looked at Bear. You spent 6 years punishing yourself for your brother's death. Would you want someone to give you a second chance? Bear thought about the question. Really thought about it. Yeah, he said finally. I would. Then help me give David his. The house was finished 32 days after the fire. Standing in what would be Elena's living room, Bear could hardly believe what they'd built. An accessible home with ramps and wide doorways and a kitchen designed for someone in a wheelchair. A bedroom for Rosie with a window that looked out on the old oak tree that Ghost had climbed to save Elena's life. A garden out back where they'd planted flowers over the ashes of the old house. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Except for one thing. Bear pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 7 years. It rang 4 times, then a voice he hadn't heard since his brother's funeral. Hello. Mom, it's Marcus. Silence. So long he thought she'd hung up. Marcus? His mother's voice was thin, fragile. I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. I know. I'm sorry, I should have called. His voice broke. There's so much I should have done. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm in Tennessee. And yeah, Mom, for the first time in 6 years, I think I'm okay. He took a deep breath. I need to tell you something. Something important. What is it? I'm building again. Not firefighting, but building. We helped a family, a woman and her daughter. They lost everything in a fire, and we rebuilt their house. 98 of us. And Mom, it felt like Mike. Bear closed his eyes. Yeah, like Mike. His mother was crying now. He could hear it through the phone. He would be so proud of you, Marcus. You know that, right? She had to stop. He always said you were the best of us. The one who would do something that mattered. I'm trying, Mom. I'm really trying. Can I come see what you've built? Yeah. Bear's voice was rough. Yeah, Mom, you can come. He hung up and stood in the empty house for a long time. Ghost found him there an hour later. Everyone's asking for you. The dedication ceremony starts in 30 minutes. I know. Bear didn't move. I was just thinking. About Mike. About all of it. About how I spent 6 years running from fire and it brought me right back here. About how a little girl grabbed my jacket and changed everything. Ghost was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Bear never expected to hear. Thank you. For what? For letting me be part of this. For not treating me like the ex-con everyone else sees. Ghost's voice was rough. When I got out of prison, I thought I was done. Thought there was nothing left for me but waiting to die. Then I found Iron Thunder, and you gave me... He stopped. You gave me a reason to keep going. And then Rosie gave me another one. She's special, that kid. They both are. Ghost looked toward the door. Elena's special too. The way she looks at you. Ghost. I'm just saying. You deserve good things, Bear. You've spent 6 years punishing yourself. Maybe it's time to stop. Bear didn't answer. But something in his chest loosened just a little. Come on, Ghost said. Let's go give a family their home. They walked out together into the waiting crowd. The crowd outside Elena's new home stretched further than Bear could see. 200 people, maybe more. Bikers from 12 different chapters across 7 states. Community members who had donated time and money. News crews from 3 networks. And standing in the front row, holding Rosie's hand like she might float away, Elena Carter. Bear walked to the front porch and turned to face them all. I'm not good at speeches. His voice carried across the silent crowd. Mike was the talker in our family. He could make anyone believe anything. Me, I just do things, so I'm going to keep this short. He looked at Elena, at Rosie, at Ghost, standing off to the side with tears he was trying to hide. 34 days ago, a little girl ran through a blizzard and grabbed the first person she could find. She didn't care that we were bikers, didn't care about our leather or our tattoos or what society thinks of us. She just needed help, and she asked for it. Bear's voice cracked. He pushed through. That's all this is. That's all any of this has ever been. People helping people, strangers becoming family, a community deciding that one woman and one child matter enough to fight for. He pulled a key from his pocket, simple silver attached to a keychain shaped like a motorcycle. Elena, this is your home. Built by people who love you. Paid for by people who've never met you but believe in what you represent. It's not perfect. The plumbing makes a weird noise when you run the dishwasher. The back door sticks a little when it's humid. But it's yours. Forever. Elena wheeled herself forward. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the armrests. I don't know what to say. Her voice was thick with tears. I spent 2 years thinking I was alone, thinking no one cared about a paralyzed widow and her daughter. And then she had to stop, breathe, start again. And then 98 strangers rode through a storm because a 6-year-old asked them to. Rosie tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mama, can I say something? Elena nodded. Rosie stepped forward. This tiny warrior who had started everything, who had run through the night on bleeding feet, who had grabbed a biker's jacket and refused to let go. Thank you for saving my mama, she said. Her voice was clear and strong. And thank you for building our house. It's the best house in the whole world. Even better than our old house because this one has love in the walls. She paused, her face scrunching up like she was remembering something important. Mr. Bear told me that sometimes angels wear leather. I think he's right. I think you're all angels. And I think my daddy sent you to us because he knew we needed help. The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. Bear watched Elena pull Rosie into her arms, watched mother and daughter hold each other while 200 people celebrated around them. And for the first time in 6 years, he felt something that wasn't pain. The party lasted until midnight. Mama Jean had organized a potluck that turned into a feast. Tables groaned under the weight of casseroles and barbecue and enough pie to feed an army. Someone had brought a sound system and music filled the night. Bikers danced with community members. Deputy Harmon did the electric slide with Ghost's sister. Even Lieutenant Governor Reeves stayed for 3 hours talking with everyone like they were old friends. Bear stood apart from it all, watching. Doc found him near the old oak tree. You should be celebrating. I am celebrating. In my own way. Standing alone in the dark is celebrating. Bear almost smiled. I'm not alone. I've got you bothering me. Doc settled against the tree beside him. She's looking for you, you know. Who? Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. Doc nodded toward the house where Elena was visible through the window scanning the crowd. She keeps glancing around, every few minutes, looking for someone specific. She's got 200 people here. Could be looking for anyone. Could be. But she's not. Doc was quiet for a moment. Bear, I've known you for 15 years. I've seen you at your best and your worst. I watched you fall apart after Mike died, and I watched you put yourself back together one piece at a time. Your point. My point is that you're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to let someone in. Mike wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life alone because you couldn't save him. Bear's jaw tightened. Don't tell me what Mike would want. Someone has to, because you're so busy punishing yourself, you can't see what's right in front of you. Doc pushed off from the tree. Elena Carter is a good woman who's been through hell. You're a good man who's been through worse. Maybe, just maybe, you could be good for each other. He walked away before Bear could respond. Bear stood alone in the dark for another long moment. Then he walked toward the house. Elena was in the kitchen when he found her, alone for the first time all night, surrounded by dirty dishes and leftover food. You should be resting. Bear leaned against the doorframe. It's your party. I needed a break. She wheeled herself toward him. 200 people is a lot when you've spent 2 years talking to no one but a 6-year-old. Where is Rosie? Asleep on the couch, Ghost is standing guard. He takes his protector role very seriously. Bear laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised them both. What's so funny? 3 months ago, Ghost barely spoke to anyone. Now he's appointed himself bodyguard to a first grader. She has that effect on people. Elena smiled. She had that effect on you. What do you mean? The night of the fire. The way you looked at her when she grabbed your jacket. Something changed in your face, like she reminded you of something. Or someone. Bear was quiet for a long moment. Mike had a daughter, Emma. She was 5 when she died. Elena's breath caught. I didn't know. No one does. Not anymore. After the funeral, I couldn't talk about her. Couldn't say her name without falling apart. So I just stopped. He swallowed hard. She looked like Rosie. Same dark hair, same fierce eyes, same way of grabbing onto you like she'd never let go. Oh, Bear. When Rosie grabbed my jacket, I saw Emma, just for a second, and I thought, his voice broke. I thought maybe this was why I survived when Mike didn't. Why I've been wandering for 6 years. Maybe I was supposed to end up at that diner at that exact moment so I could be there when Rosie needed help. Elena reached out and took his hand. Her grip was warm, steady. I believe that, she said quietly. I believe everything happens for a reason. Even the terrible things. Even losing Marcus. Even the fire. Even being paralyzed. Even that. She looked down at her useless legs. If I hadn't been in this chair, I wouldn't have been trapped upstairs. Rosie wouldn't have had to run for help. She wouldn't have found you. And we wouldn't be here. That's a lot of tragedy to justify a happy ending. Who said anything about an ending? Elena looked up at him. This isn't an ending, Bear. It's a beginning. Before he could respond, the door burst open. Ghost stood there, his face white as paper. Bear, you need to come outside, now. What's wrong? There's a woman at the edge of the property. Says she's your mother, and there's someone with her. Bear felt his blood go cold. Someone who... A woman, mid-20s. Says her name is Lily Holloway. Says she's your daughter. Bear couldn't move. His daughter. His daughter was here. Lily, who he hadn't seen in 7 years. Who had blamed him for Mike's death. Who had told him at the funeral that she wished it had been him instead. Lily, who he had loved more than life itself. Who he had failed in every way a father could fail. Bear, Elena's voice was distant. Bear, are you okay? He wasn't okay. He would never be okay. But he walked outside anyway. She was standing beside his mother on the lawn. 28 years old now, but he could still see the little girl he'd taught to ride a bicycle. The teenager who'd rolled her eyes at his jokes. The young woman who'd screamed at him that he was a murderer and she never wanted to see him again. Dad. Lily's voice was smaller than he remembered, more uncertain. Lily. He couldn't say anything else. His throat had closed up completely. I saw the video, the documentary, Sarah Mitchell's piece. She took a halting step forward. I saw you carry that little girl through the fire. I saw you build that house. I saw you... Her voice cracked. I saw you being the man Uncle Mike always told me you were. Mike talked about me. All the time. He said you were the bravest person he knew. He said you saved his life 100 times before he even joined the department. He said... She was crying now. He said the only reason he became a firefighter was because he wanted to be like his big brother. Bear's knees buckled. He would have fallen if Ghost hadn't caught him. Easy, Ghost murmured. I've got you. Dad, I'm sorry. Lily was sobbing. I'm so sorry. I blamed you because I was angry and scared, and I didn't know what else to do. But you didn't kill Uncle Mike. You tried to save him. You always tried to save everyone. I couldn't save him. Save. Bear's voice was raw. I couldn't save Emma. I couldn't save anyone. You saved that woman. Lily pointed toward the house where Elena was watching from the doorway. You saved her daughter. You saved everyone on that construction site when you exposed those corrupt bastards. She stepped forward and took his face in her hands. Dad, you've been saving people your whole life. You just never let yourself believe it. Bear broke. 7 years of grief. 7 years of guilt. 7 years of running from the memory of his brother's voice on the radio. It all came pouring out. He sobbed like a child held up by ghost on one side and his daughter on the other. His mother was there too, somewhere. He could feel her hands on his back, hear her voice murmuring comfort. And through it all, one thought kept circling in his shattered mind. Maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself. Maybe it's time to live. The next few weeks were a blur. Elena settled into her new house with Rosie finally home after 34 days of motels and hospital rooms. The documentary aired on national television, drawing millions of viewers and raising another $800,000 for the Iron Thunder Foundation, a new nonprofit that Bear and the club had established to help other families in crisis. Ghost's sister became their official records keeper, having quit her county job the day after Voss was arrested. She said she couldn't work for a system that protected men like him. Now she worked for a system that actually helped people. Deputy Harmon was promoted to sergeant, recognized for his role in exposing the corruption that had plagued the county for years. He still rode with Iron Thunder on weekends, though he'd had to trade his sheriff's cruiser for a Harley. David Carter moved into a rental house 3 blocks from Elena, slowly rebuilding his relationship with his niece. He and Bear had reached an understanding they would never be friends, but they could be family for Rosie's sake. And Lily. Lily visited every other weekend, staying in the guest room of Elena's new house. She and Rosie had become inseparable, the 6-year-old delighted to have a big sister who taught her to braid hair and paint nails, and all the things Elena couldn't quite manage from her wheelchair. Bear watched it all happen with a mixture of wonder and fear. "You're doing that thing again." Elena rolled up beside him on the porch. It was early morning dawn, just breaking over the hills. "What thing?" "That thing where you stand apart from everyone and convince yourself you don't deserve any of this." "I don't do that." "You do it constantly." She reached up and took his hand. "Bear, it's been 2 months. When are you going to accept that this is your life now?" "I accept it." "Do you?" "Because every time something good happens, you get this look on your face like you're waiting for it to be taken away." He couldn't deny it. That fear had been his companion for 6 years. The certainty that happiness was temporary, that loss was always around the corner, that anyone he let himself love would be ripped away. "Old habits," he said. "Then maybe it's time for new ones." Elena tugged his hand until he knelt beside her chair. "I've been thinking about something. About us." "Elena, let me finish." Her eyes were fierce. 2 months ago, you walked into a burning building to save my life. Since then, you've rebuilt my home, exposed the people who destroyed it, given my daughter a family, and shown me that I'm not as alone as I thought. You've done everything for me. Everything. I didn't do it for... I know. You did it because it was the right thing to do. Because that's who you are. She touched his face. But I'm not talking about debts or gratitude. I'm talking about something else. What? I'm falling in love with you, Marcus Holloway. Bear stopped breathing. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to feel the same way. But I couldn't keep pretending I don't feel what I feel. Her voice shook, but didn't break. For 2 years, I thought I'd never love anyone again. I thought that part of me died with Marcus. But then you showed up and you looked at my daughter like she was precious, and you carried me out of a fire, and you built me a house with your own hands. Elena. And I kept waiting for you to leave, to ride off into the sunset like some kind of cowboy hero who doesn't stick around. But you stayed. You stayed, and you kept staying. And somewhere along the way I realized... Bear kissed her. It was clumsy, unexpected, the angle all wrong because she was in her chair and he was kneeling in the dirt. But it was real. The most real thing he'd felt in years. When they finally broke apart, Elena was laughing and crying at the same time. I take it you feel the same way. I've been in love with you since the moment you told me to leave you behind and save myself. Bear's voice was rough. You were dying in that burning house, and your first thought was to save the stranger who came to help you. I've never met anyone like you, Elena. I never will again. So what do we do now? I don't know. He laughed, the sound still strange in his own ears. I haven't done this in a long time. Done what? Fallen in love. Been happy. I've forgotten how. Elena pulled him close again. Then I'll remind you. Every day. For as long as you'll let me. That might be a while. I'm counting on it. Papa Bear. Rosie's voice shattered the moment. She came bursting through the front door, still in her pajamas, face lit up with excitement. Papa Bear! Papa Bear! You have to come see Ghost. Taught me to whistle. Listen. She pursed her lips and produced a sound that was more spit than whistle. Isn't it great? Bear looked at this child, this fierce, impossible, wonderful child who had changed everything. That's amazing, sweetheart. Best whistle I've ever heard. Mama, did you hear Papa Bear said I'm the best? Rosie stopped suddenly, looking at the two of them, at Bear still kneeling beside her mother's chair, at their intertwined hands. Are you guys being mushy? Elena laughed. Maybe a little. Gross. But Rosie was grinning. Does this mean Papa Bear is staying forever? Bear looked at Elena. Elena looked back at him. Yeah, Rosebud. Bear's voice was thick. I think it does. Rosie launched herself at him, nearly knocking him over. I knew it. I knew you'd stay. I told Ghost you'd stay, and he said I was probably right, and I was right. I'm always right. Not always, Elena said dryly. Almost always. That's basically always. The door opened again. Ghost stepped out, saw the scene, and stopped. Am I interrupting something? Papa Bear is staying forever, Rosie announced. He and Mama are being mushy. Ghost's face did something Bear had never seen before. He smiled. About damn time, Ghost said. I was getting tired of watching you two pretend you weren't in love. Language, Elena and Bear said simultaneously. Sorry, about darn time. Ghost's smile widened. Congratulations, both of you. Thanks. Bear stood, Rosie still attached to his leg. Now who wants breakfast? Me, Rosie shouted. Pancakes with chocolate chips and whipped cream and sprinkles. That's not breakfast, that's diabetes. Please, Papa Bear. Bear looked at Elena. She shrugged. It's a special occasion. Fine. Chocolate chip pancakes with all the fixings. He hoisted Rosie onto his shoulders. But you're helping cook. Deal. They went inside together. A family. Not the one Bear had imagined when he was younger, when Mike was alive, when the future seemed certain and bright. But a family nonetheless. Found not born. Forged in fire and rebuilt from ash. The phone call came 3 hours later. Bear was elbow deep in pancake batter when his cell rang. He answered without looking at the screen. Holloway. Mr. Holloway. This is District Attorney Pamela Chen. I'm calling about the Midwest Regional Development case. Bear set down the mixing bowl. Something in her voice made his stomach tighten. What about it? We've completed our investigation. Raymond Voss has cooperated fully, providing evidence of a conspiracy that goes much higher than we initially realized. Chen paused. Mr. Holloway, we have proof that the fire at Elena Carter's home was deliberately set. Bear's world tilted sideways. You're sure? We have the accelerant analysis. We have financial records showing a payment to an arsonist 2 days before the fire. We have emails, text messages, and testimony from 3 different co-conspirators. Another pause. We're making arrests today. 7 people, including the CEO of the parent company. They're being charged with arson conspiracy, reckless endangerment, and given Elena's disability, attempted murder. Bear couldn't speak. His hand was shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Holloway, I'm here. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Does Elena know? Not yet. I wanted to inform you first, given your role in the investigation. But she'll need to be told, today, before it hits the news. I'll tell her. Mr. Holloway Bear, what you and your club did exposing this corruption, it's made a real difference. Not just for Elena. We've uncovered a pattern of similar incidents going back years. Other families who lost homes to accidental fires that weren't accidents at all. Because of you, they're finally getting justice. Bear hung up without responding. He stood in Elena's kitchen surrounded by pancake batter and the sounds of Rosie's laughter and tried to process what he'd just learned. Someone had tried to kill her, had tried to burn her alive for profit. And if it hadn't been for a 6-year-old girl who refused to give up, Bear, Elena's voice came from the doorway. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." He turned to face her. This woman he loved. This woman who had nearly died because someone wanted her land. "We need to talk." He told her everything. When he finished, Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she started to cry. Not the soft, gentle tears she'd shed at the dedication ceremony. These were deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Bear held her. There was nothing else to do. "They tried to kill me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "They tried to kill my daughter. Rosie was at school. She wasn't supposed to be home. But I was. I was supposed to die in that fire. And if it had happened differently, if the smoke detector hadn't woken me up, if I'd been asleep when the flames reached my room." "Don't." Bear pulled back to look at her. "Don't go down that road. It didn't happen that way. You survived. Rosie survived. And the people who did this are going to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Because of you." Elena wiped her eyes. "Because you wouldn't let it go. Because you kept digging until you found the truth. Because Ghost found the truth. And Harmon. And Sarah Mitchell. And everyone else who refused to let this disappear. But you started it. You believed there was more to the story. You believed me when I said it didn't make sense." Bear thought about all the pieces that had fallen into place. The corrupt fire marshal. The shell companies. The memo about insurance complications. All of it leading back to a group of men in suits who had decided that Elena Carter's life was worth less than their profit margin. "I believed in you," he said. "From the first moment Rosie grabbed my jacket. I believed you were worth fighting for." Elena pulled him close. They held each other in the kitchen of the house that love had built, surrounded by the chaos of pancake ingredients and a 6-year-old's artwork on the refrigerator. "So what happens now?" Elena asked. "Now we heal. We let the justice system do its work. We raise Rosie and build a life and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Is that possible?" After everything, Bear thought about his brother, about Emma, about 6 years of wandering and a lifetime of loss. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm willing to try if you are." Elena kissed him, soft, gentle, full of promise. "I'm willing to try anything with you." The arrests made national news that night. Bear watched the coverage with Elena Ghost Mama Jean and what felt like half of Iron Thunder crammed into the living room. 7 men in handcuffs being led from various locations across 3 states. The CEO of Midwest Regional Development face hidden from cameras. The arsonist who had actually set the fire, a man who had apparently done this sort of thing before for other corporations who needed problems to resolve themselves. Sarah Mitchell's coverage was precise and devastating. She laid out the conspiracy in clear, damning detail. She showed photos of Elena's burned home. She interviewed Rosie, who explained in her matter-of-fact way that some bad men tried to hurt my mama, but the bikers stopped them. When it was over, Elena turned off the television. "It's really done," she said quietly. "It's really over." "The trial will take months," Bear reminded her. "Maybe years." "I know, but they're caught. They can't hurt anyone else." She looked around the room at all the people who had become her family. "We did that, all of us, together." Ghost raised his beer. "To justice." "To family," Mama Jean added. "To second chances," Preacher said. Bear looked at Elena, at Rosie asleep in Ghost's lap, at his mother sitting in the corner with a smile on her face he hadn't seen in years, at Lily, who had driven 4 hours to be here for the news. "To new beginnings," he said. They drank together, a mismatched family bound by tragedy and rebuilt in love. And somewhere Bear was certain Mike was smiling. 6 months had passed since the night that changed everything. Bear stood at the window of Elena's kitchen watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Behind him, he could hear Rosie arguing with Ghost about the proper way to make scrambled eggs. "You have to stir them constantly," Rosie insisted. "That's how Mama does it." "Your Mama makes them too soft. Real eggs have some texture." "Texture is gross. Soft is better." "You're 7 years old. What do you know about eggs?" "I know more than you," Bear smiled. This had become their morning routine, Ghost arriving early to help with breakfast. Rosie supervising every step, the two of them bickering like siblings, despite the 30-year age difference. "What are you thinking about?" Elena's voice came from behind him. She rolled up in her chair, but something was different this morning. She was gripping the armrests with white-knuckled hands. "Just how much has changed?" Bear turned to face her. "You okay?" "I need to show you something." Her voice was trembling. "I've been working on it for 3 months, with the physical therapist. I wanted to wait until I was sure." "Sure about what?" Elena didn't answer. Instead, she reached down and locked the wheels of her chair. Then she placed both hands on the armrests and pushed. Bear's heart stopped. She was standing, shakily, uncertainly, legs trembling with effort, but standing. "Elena, don't." Her voice was fierce. "Don't help me. I have to do this myself." She took a step, then another. Her legs screamed with the effort muscles atrophied from 2 years of disuse fighting against her will. 3 steps, 4, 5. She collapsed into Bear's arms, sobbing. "I did it." Her voice was muffled against his chest. "I walked, Bear, I walked." He held her so tight he was afraid he might break her. I saw you, Elena. You walked." "The doctor said I might never. They said the nerve damage was too severe, but I kept trying. Every day, because I wanted to walk to you. I wanted to walk at our wedding." Bear pulled back, stared at her. "Our wedding?" Elena's face went pale. That came out wrong. I didn't mean..." "Did you mean it?" "Bear, we've only been together for 6 months. It's too soon. I shouldn't have..." "Did you mean it?" She looked up at him. This man who had walked into fire for her, who had rebuilt her home and her life, who had given her daughter a family and given her a reason to hope again. "Yes," she whispered. "I meant it." Bear kissed her, deep, fierce, full of everything he'd been holding back. When they finally broke apart, Rosie was standing in the doorway with Ghost behind her. Both of them were staring. "Mama!" Rosie screamed. You're standing on your legs." "I walked, baby." Elena was crying and laughing at the same time. 5 whole steps. Rosie launched herself across the room and crashed into both of them, nearly knocking Elena off her feet. Bear caught them both, held them steady. "This is the best day ever," Rosie shouted. "Mama can walk, and Papa. Bear is crying, and everything is perfect." "I'm not crying," Bear said, wiping his eyes. "You're totally crying." Ghost's voice was rough. "It's okay. I'm crying too." Bear looked at his friend, this silent, haunted man who had become family. Ghost's cheeks were wet with tears he wasn't bothering to hide. "Getting soft in your old age," Bear said. "Shut up." But Ghost was smiling. "Now help me finish these eggs before they burn." The news of Elena's progress spread through the Iron Thunder community like wildfire. Within hours, Bear's phone was flooded with messages. Mama Jean demanding video proof. Doc offering to adjust Elena's physical therapy regimen. Preacher saying he'd add extra prayers to his morning devotions. And one message that made Bear's breath catch. From Lily. "Dad, I'm so happy for you both. Mike would be proud. See you Sunday." He showed the message to Elena. "She's coming every Sunday now," Elena said. "It's becoming a tradition." "I know, Bear shook his head. 7 years we didn't speak. 7 years I thought I'd lost her forever. And now she texts me like nothing happened. Maybe for her nothing did happen. Maybe she was just waiting for you to become the person you were supposed to be. That's very philosophical for 7 in the morning." "I'm a deep thinker," Elena grinned. "Now help me back to my chair before my legs give out completely." The trial began in April. Bear sat in the courtroom every day for 3 weeks watching the prosecutors build their case against the men who had tried to burn Elena alive. Ghost sat beside him silent and watchful. Sergeant Harmon now sat on Bear's other side, having taken personal leave to support the family he'd once considered enemies. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails, financial records, testimony from Voss and the arsonist who had actually set the fire. The defense attorneys tried every trick in the book. Procedural challenges, character attacks, attempts to blame rogue employees rather than corporate leadership. None of it worked. On the 15th day of trial, Elena testified. She wheeled herself to the witness stand, but before the bailiff could help her into the chair, she stopped. "I'd like to stand," she said, "if the court permits." The judge nodded. Elena locked her wheelchair, gripped the armrests, and stood. The courtroom went silent. "Mrs. Carter," the prosecutor said, "can you tell us what happened on the night of January 14th? "I woke up to smoke." Elena's voice was steady, strong. "My daughter was screaming. The stairs were gone, collapsed from the fire. I couldn't walk, couldn't get to her. I told her to run, to find help, and then—" She stopped, took a breath. "And then I prepared to die." The defense attorney objected. The judge overruled. Elena continued. "I was at the window waiting for the floor to collapse when a man appeared out of nowhere. A man I'd never met. He climbed through my window, lifted me in his arms, and carried me to safety." She pointed at Bear. "That man, Marcus Holloway. A stranger who risked his life because my 6-year-old daughter grabbed his jacket and begged for help." "And the defendants?" the prosecutor asked. "What do you want to say to them?" Elena turned to face the row of men in suits. The CEO, the lawyers, the accountants who had moved money to make a murder look like an accident. "You tried to kill me for profit." Her voice didn't waver. "You tried to burn my daughter's home to the ground so you could build a shopping center. But you failed. And not because of the police or the courts or the system that protected you for years." She took a step toward them, then another, walking on legs that doctors had said would never work again. "You failed because of a motorcycle club. Because of 98 strangers who cared more about a paralyzed widow than you cared about any human being in your entire lives. Because of a little girl who ran 3 miles through a blizzard instead of giving up." Another step, 3 feet from the defendants now. "You thought you could destroy us. You thought we were weak, but we're still standing." She smiled, cold, fierce, triumphant. "Can you say the same?" The defense had no cross-examination. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. All counts. All defendants. Bear held Elena as the verdict was read. Held her as she finally allowed herself to cry. Held her as justice. Real justice was finally served. "It's over," she whispered. "It's really over." "Yeah." His voice was rough. "It's over." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Endings were just beginnings in disguise, and they had so much more building to do. The wedding was held in August, exactly 1 year after the fire. They'd considered having it at the new house, but there wasn't enough room. They'd considered a church, but neither of them was particularly religious. In the end, they chose the empty lot where Elena's old house had stood, now transformed into a community garden funded by the Iron Thunder Foundation. 300 people gathered among the flowers and vegetables and the oak sapling that had been planted to honor everyone they'd lost. Bear stood at the makeshift altar with Ghost at his side, his best man, the ex-convict who had become his brother. "You nervous?" Ghost asked. "Terrified." "Good, me too." What are you nervous about?" "I'm responsible for the rings. If I lose them, Rosie will murder me in my sleep." Bear laughed. Actually laughed, the sound still surprising him even after all these months. The music started. Not a traditional wedding march. Elena had insisted on something different. Instead, the sound of 98 motorcycles revving their engines in harmony. The crowd parted. Elena appeared at the end of the aisle, standing on her own 2 feet. No wheelchair, no crutches. Just her in a simple white dress supported only by her own strength and determination. Rosie walked beside her, scattering flower petals with the precision of a general directing troops. "Don't walk too fast, Mama," Rosie whispered loudly. "You're doing great. I know, baby. And don't fall. That would be really embarrassing. Thank you for the encouragement." Well, you're welcome. Elena reached the altar. Bear took her hands. You walked, he said, the whole aisle. I told you I would. Her eyes were bright with tears. I wasn't going to roll to my own wedding. The ceremony was short. Neither of them wanted speeches and formality. Preacher officiated his first wedding since he'd lost his faith and the best evidence that he was finding it again. Do you, Marcus Holloway, take Elena Carter to be your wife? To love and protect in sickness and health until death do you part? I do. Bear's voice cracked on the words. I really, really do. And do you, Elena Carter, take Marcus Holloway to be your husband, to love and support in sickness and health until death do you part? I do. Elena squeezed his hands. With everything I am and everything I'll ever be. Then by the power vested in me by the state of Tennessee and the Lord above, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Preacher grinned. You may kiss the bride. Bear kissed her like his life depended on it. The crowd erupted. 300 people cheering, crying, revving engines. Rosie jumped up and down between them, shouting, "Finally!" at the top of her lungs. Ghost produced the rings without losing them. Mama Jean sobbed into Harmon's shoulder. Doc discreetly checked Bear's pulse and pronounced it elevated but acceptable. And somewhere in the crowd, Bear's mother and daughter stood side by side watching him become part of a new family without leaving the old one behind. I'm proud of you, Dad. Lily found him during the reception, pulling him away from the crowd for a private moment. Uncle Mike would be proud too. You think so? I know so. She hugged him the first time she'd initiated physical contact since they'd reconciled. He always said you were meant for big things. I think this is what he meant. I miss him every day. Me too. Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. But he's here. Can't you feel it in the way the wind moved during the ceremony, in the way Rosie laughs? She sounds just like Emma used to. Bear's throat closed up. You remember Emma's laugh? Of course I do. She was my cousin. She was... Lily's voice broke. She was one of my best friend's dad. Losing her and Uncle Mike in the same year almost destroyed me. I think that's why I blamed you. I needed someone to blame, and you were there. I blamed myself too. Still do sometimes. Then stop. Lily gripped his arms. Stop carrying the weight of everyone who died. You didn't kill them. You couldn't save them. Those are two different things. And punishing yourself for the second one doesn't change anything except making your own life smaller. When did you get so wise? I've been in therapy for 2 years. She smiled. Turns out talking about your feelings actually helps. Bear pulled her into another hug. I love you, Lily. I never stopped. I know, Dad. I love you too. Elena found him an hour later sitting alone by the oak sapling. Hiding from your own reception. Taking a breather. He patted the ground beside him. Join me. She lowered herself carefully, legs still protesting extended use, but she made it down on her own, settling against his side. Happy, she asked. Terrified. That's what you said at the altar. It's still true. He put his arm around her. I've lost everyone I ever loved, Elena. My brother, my niece, my first marriage. I've spent 6 years convincing myself that I was meant to be alone. And now you have a wife, a daughter, a family, and 300 people who rode hundreds of miles to watch you get married. Yeah. He shook his head. It's a lot. It is. Elena leaned into him. But you're not alone in carrying it. That's the whole point of family. We carry things together. What if I drop something? Then I'll pick it up. What if I fall? I'll catch you. Always. See? She kissed his cheek. That's how this works. We lean on each other until neither of us has to lean anymore. Rosie appeared out of nowhere, as she often did. Are you guys being mushy again? Extremely mushy, Elena confirmed. Gross. But Rosie was grinning. Papa Bear Ghost says the cake is ready, and if I don't come get you right now, he's going to eat my piece. He would never. He totally would. He's already eyeing the frosting flowers. Bear stood, then helped Elena to her feet. Can't have Ghost eating your flowers. Those are important. The most important, Rosie grabbed both their hands. Come on, come on, come on. She dragged them back to the reception, back to the crowd, back to the family they'd built from ash and determination. The cake was cut. Toasts were made. Ghost gave a speech that made everyone cry, revealing depths of emotion no one had known he possessed. Dancing happened even for Elena, who slow danced with Bear while he supported most of her weight, and neither of them cared. As the sun set on the happiest day of Bear's life, he found himself standing once again at the edge of the garden, looking at the spot where Elena's old house had burned. 1 year ago, he said quietly, I was a ghost, riding from nowhere to nowhere, waiting to die. And now, Mama Jean had appeared beside him as she always seemed to when he needed her. Now I'm terrified that I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. It's not a dream, Marcus. She used his real name. She only did that when something important was coming. You built this, all of it, from the ashes of a burned house and the broken pieces of your own heart. I had help. Everyone needs help. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Mama Jean put her hand on his arm. Mike knew that. He ran into that building because he knew he couldn't save those kids alone, but he could give them a chance while he waited for backup. The backup never came. The building fell. But he gave them every second he had because that's what love does. It gives everything. Bear closed his eyes. I've been so angry at him, for years, for dying, for leaving me, for being the hero when I should have been the one to go up those stairs. And now I'm just grateful. He opened his eyes. Grateful I had him for as long as I did. Grateful for who he taught me to be. Grateful that when a little girl grabbed my jacket and begged for help, I didn't hesitate because that's what Mike would have done. Mama Jean smiled. That's healing, Marcus. That's what it looks like. It hurts. It's supposed to, but it won't always. She nodded toward the party where Elena and Rosie were dancing to a song played by someone's portable speaker. You've got reasons to heal now. Real reasons. Don't waste them. She walked away, leaving Bear alone with his thoughts. He watched his wife and daughter dance, watched Ghost teaching Harmon a motorcycle club handshake, watched Preacher leading an impromptu prayer circle that included both believers and skeptics, watched his mother laughing at something Lily said, 2 generations of Holloway women together again. This was his family now. Blood and choice, and everything in between. The first anniversary of the house's completion came faster than anyone expected. The Iron Thunder Foundation had grown beyond anything Bear had imagined. Funded by donations from across the country, they'd helped rebuild 7 more homes for families in crisis. Ghost ran their outreach program for ex-convicts, helping former prisoners find jobs and housing and purpose. Doc provided free medical care to anyone who needed it. Mama Jean coordinated volunteers with the efficiency of a military general. And Rosie had become the Foundation's unofficial mascot. She appeared in news stories and promotional materials, the brave little girl who had started it all. I don't feel brave, she told Bear one night when he was tucking her into bed. Everyone says I'm brave, but I was just scared. I ran because I was scared Mama would die. That's exactly what bravery is, Rosebud. Bear sat on the edge of her bed, being scared and doing the hard thing anyway. That's what Mama always says. Your mama is a smart woman. The smartest. Rosie was quiet for a moment. Papa Bear, are you going to be my dad forever? Forever and ever. Even when I'm old, like 30. Even when you're 30. Even when you're 100. Forever. Good. She snuggled deeper into her blankets. Because I already lost one, Daddy. I don't want to lose another one. Bear's heart cracked open. You won't lose me, Rosie. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. That's what Mama says, too. Then I'll make a promise I can keep. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. I promise to always come back. No matter what happens, no matter where I go, I will always come back to you. And Mama, always. Rosie smiled, already half asleep. Okay, that's a good promise. Bear stayed until her breathing deepened into sleep. Then he slipped out of her room and found Elena waiting in the hallway. You heard that, he asked. I hear everything. She took his hand. Come with me. There's something I need to show you. She led him through the house, walking now, always walking when she could, though the chair was still necessary for longer distances. They went out the back door into the garden where vegetables and flowers grew from soil that had once been ash. Close your eyes, Elena said. Why? Because I said so. Close them. Bear closed his eyes. He felt Elena move away, heard something click, felt warmth on his face. Okay. Open. He opened his eyes. The garden was filled with lights. Hundreds of tiny white lights strung through the trees wrapped around the fence, illuminating the oak sapling that had grown nearly 2 feet in the past year. But that wasn't what made Bear catch his breath. It was the people. Every member of Iron Thunder who could make it. Doc and Mama Jean and Preacher and Ghost. Harmon and his wife, whom he'd started dating 3 months ago. Sarah Mitchell, who had become a friend. Lieutenant Governor Reeves, who had just announced her candidacy for governor. And in the front, holding a handmade sign that read, Happy Anniversary, Papa Bear and Mama, was Rosie, who apparently had not been asleep at all. Surprise, she shouted. We tricked you. You definitely tricked me. Bear looked at Elena. You planned all this. Ghost planned it. I just nodded along. Ghost stepped forward, looking deeply uncomfortable with the attention. It's been 1 year since we finished the house. 1 year since you two figured out what everyone else already knew. 1 year since... He stopped. Since I started believing that second chances were real. Ghost. Let me finish. I'm bad at this, so I have to say it fast. Ghost took a breath. 1 year ago, I climbed a tree and caught a falling woman. That was the first time in my life I did something that mattered. Since then, I've done a lot of things that matter. And all of it, every single bit, started because a little girl ran through a blizzard and asked for help. He looked at Rosie. You saved us, kid. Not just your mom. All of us. Every person standing in this garden was lost in some way, and you found us. You gave us something to build, someone to fight for, a family to belong to. Rosie's face scrunched up like she might cry. I just wanted to save Mama. I know, and that's why it worked. Ghost knelt down to her level. The best things in life happen when we're not trying to be heroes. They happen when we're just trying to help the people we love. He held out a small box. This is for you. 1 year late, but better than never. Rosie opened the box. Inside was a tiny motorcycle charm on a silver chain. It's like your jackets. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Am I part of the club now? Kid, you've been part of the club since the night you grabbed Bear's jacket and wouldn't let go. Ghost smiled, a real smile, full and warm. This just makes it official. Rosie threw her arms around him. Thank you, Uncle Ghost. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Uncle Ghost. Bear raised an eyebrow. She started calling me that last month. Ghost's voice was gruff, but he was hugging Rosie back just as tightly. I don't hate it. The party went until midnight. Stories were shared the night of the fire, the building of the house, the trial and its aftermath. Doc got drunk and started teaching people field surgery techniques until Mama Jean made him stop. Preacher led a prayer that somehow included jokes about motorcycles and ended with everyone laughing. And through it all, Bear stood with his wife and watched the family they'd built celebrate the life they'd made. Regrets? Elena asked late in the evening when the crowd had thinned and the lights were dimming. Only that I didn't find you sooner. You found me exactly when you were supposed to. She leaned into him. Any earlier, and you wouldn't have been ready. Any later, and I might not have survived. Divine timing. Something like that. She touched the ring around her neck, Marcus's ring, which she still wore every day. I used to think God took everything from me. My husband, my legs, my home. But now I wonder if he was just making room. Making room for what? For this. She gestured at the garden, the house, the people. For a life I never could have imagined. For a family that chose me when my own family walked away. David's been better. David's been trying, that's different, Elena smiled. But you're right, he's been trying, and that counts for something. Rosie appeared between them, finally tired, the motorcycle charm glinting at her throat. Can we go inside now? I'm sleepy. Of course, baby. Elena took her daughter's hand. Let's go home. Home. The word hit Bear differently than it ever had before. Home wasn't a place anymore. It wasn't four walls and a roof. It was these two people, this woman he loved and this child who had saved them all. Home was wherever they were. Bear carried Rosie to bed. She'd fallen asleep before they reached the door and tucked her in for the second time that night. Then he found Elena in their bedroom, already changed, sitting on the edge of the bed. She's out, he said. She had a big night. Elena patted the space beside her. Come here. He sat. She took his hand. 1 year, she said softly. 1 year since everything changed. Best year of my life. Mine too. She was quiet for a moment. Bear, I need to tell you something. What? I went to the doctor last week. I didn't tell you because I wanted to be sure. She took a breath. I'm pregnant. The world stopped spinning. You're what? Pregnant. 12 weeks. They said it was unlikely because of the nerve damage, because of the accident, because of 100 medical reasons. But, she laughed, tears streaming down her face. But here we are. Bear couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. Say something, Elena whispered. Please. I'm going to be a father. You're already a father. Rosie made sure of that. I'm going to be a father again. He pulled her into his arms. Elena, we're having a baby. We're having a baby. He held her while they both cried, held her while the reality sank in, held her while the fear and joy and overwhelming love crashed over him in waves. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified. Me too. She pulled back to look at him. But I've learned something this year. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you have something worth protecting. When did you get so wise? I've been hanging around with bikers. Apparently it rubs off. They laughed together, cried together, held each other through the night. And in the morning they told Rosie, I'm going to be a big sister. Her shriek probably woke the entire neighborhood. This is the best day ever. Better than the wedding? Bear asked. Better than everything. Rosie was bouncing on the bed. I'm going to teach the baby everything. How to walk and talk and whistle and build things and everything. That's a lot of teaching. I'm very smart. I can handle it. Elena laughed. Yes, baby, you certainly can. The next few months flew by. Elena's pregnancy progressed smoothly, defying every medical expectation. Ghost appointed himself official bodyguard, appearing at random times to check on her and glare at anyone who came too close. Mama Jean organized a baby shower that involved 90 motorcycles and a 3-tier cake shaped like a tiny Harley. The foundation continued to grow. They helped 12 more families that year, then 20, then 30. What had started as one burned house and one desperate little girl had become a movement. And Bear finally allowed himself to be happy. Not perfect, not without fear, but happy in a way he hadn't thought possible since he'd heard his brother's voice on the radio for the last time. The baby was born in April, 1 year and 3 months after the fire. A boy, 8 pounds, 6 ounces, healthy and screaming and perfect. They named him Michael Marcus Holloway Mike for the brother Bear had lost Marcus for the husband Elena still honored. Hello, little one. Bear held his son for the first time, tears streaming down his face. I'm your dad. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but I promise to always come back. No matter what happens, no matter where I go, I will always come back to you. The same promise he'd made to Rosie. The same promise he made to Elena every day in 100 different ways. The promise of a man who had finally stopped running. Rosie met her brother with all the intensity of a 7-year-old who had been waiting months for this moment. He's so small, she whispered, and wrinkly. You were small and wrinkly once too, Elena said. No way, I was cute. You were very cute, and very wrinkly. Rosie considered this. Okay, he can be wrinkly for now, but he has to be cute later. Deal. The family gathered in the hospital room. Ghost and Doc and Mama Jean and Preacher. Harmon and his wife, now 3 months pregnant herself. Lily and Bear's mother, who had become inseparable since the wedding. All of them crowded around one tiny baby celebrating a life that had seemed impossible just 18 months ago. You did good, Bear. Ghost's voice was rough. Real good. We all did good. Bear looked at his family blood and choice and everything in between. None of this happens without all of us. Agreed. Mama Jean wiped her eyes. But you led the way. Don't forget that. When a little girl grabbed your jacket and begged for help, you could have said no. You could have let someone else handle it. But you didn't. You ran into the fire. Mike would have done the same thing. Mike did do the same thing, and he died for it. Mama Jean's voice was fierce. But you lived. You lived and you built something beautiful from the ashes. That's not replacing what you lost. That's honoring it. Bear looked at his son. This tiny miracle who would never know his uncle but would grow up hearing stories about him. Who would learn that bravery meant being scared and doing the hard thing anyway? Who would understand that family wasn't just blood, it was choice and commitment and showing up when it mattered? Welcome to the family, Michael, Bear whispered. We're loud and messy and we ride motorcycles, but we love hard and we never give up. The baby made a sound that might have been agreement. That night, after everyone had gone home and Elena was sleeping, Bear stood by the hospital window with his son in his arms. Outside, the world was dark and quiet. But Bear wasn't looking at the darkness. He was looking at the stars. Hey, Mike, he said softly. I want you to meet someone. This is Michael, named after you. He's going to be amazing, I can already tell. The baby stirred. Bear rocked him gently. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I spent 6 years trying to drink myself to death because I couldn't figure out how to live without you. But I'm here now. I'm living. And I'm going to raise this kid to be like you, brave and kind and ready to run into the fire when someone needs help. A tear tracked down his cheek. I love you, little brother. I always will. And I promise to make you proud. The baby opened his eyes. Dark eyes like Bear's. Like Mike's. And somewhere in a place beyond pain and loss and grief, Bear could have sworn he heard his brother say, You already have. The day Michael Marcus Holloway came home from the hospital, 98 motorcycles lined the street. Not because anyone had asked them to, not because there was a parade or a celebration or anything official, they just showed up. The way they had on the coldest night in Tennessee history. The way they would for every crisis and every triumph for the rest of their lives. Elena stood on her own 2 feet at the front door holding her son. Rosie stood beside her wearing her motorcycle charm and grinning like she'd won the lottery. Bear stood behind them, arms around his family, tears in his eyes. What do you think, Rosebud? He asked. Good enough family. The best family. Rosie leaned into him. The very best. Bear looked at his wife and his son and his daughter. At the bikers who had become brothers. At the house that had risen from ashes. At the life he had built from the wreckage of everything he'd lost. 1 year and 4 months ago, he had been a ghost, riding from nowhere to nowhere, waiting to die. Now he was home. The engines roared in welcome. The baby slept through it all. And Bear Marcus Holloway, president of Iron Thunder, husband, father, brother to 98 souls who wore leather and rode Harleys, finally understood what his brother had known all along. The fire doesn't destroy us. It forges us, and from the ashes we rise, always, together.